Coaching the Soul Rough Draft 01. Coaching the Soul. Beyond the X's and O's, Lacrosse Edition, by Joseph Van Harken. Disclaimer. The stories, scenarios, and player examples shared within this book are drawn from years of coaching experience, observation, and conversations within the lacrosse community. While every anecdote aims to illustrate a crucial principle or lesson about coaching the inner athlete, many names, specific game situations, locations, and other identifying details have been altered or composited. This has been done respectfully and intentionally to protect the privacy of the individuals and teams involved. The core essence, the emotional truth, and the coaching insights derived from each situation, however, remain entirely authentic and are presented here in the hope of benefiting fellow coaches and the players they serve. Forward. Step onto any field, court, or track where athletes strive, and you will find coaches vigilant and focused. As coaches, we are, by nature and necessity, keen observers. It's ingrained in our DNA. We meticulously analyze game film, dissect plays with hawk-like focus, and track the intricate dance of strategy as it unfolds during competition. We watch how the game evolves, moment by moment, adapting our tactics accordingly. We observe how our players interact, their communication, their body language, their synergy or lack thereof. We pride ourselves on seeing the nuances that others miss, spotting the slight hesitation, the subtle shift in momentum, the flicker of understanding or confusion. Our eyes are trained on the external, the execution, the effort, the outcome. But how often do we turn that same intense gaze inward, not towards ourselves, but into the heart, the mind, the very soul of the athletes we lead? We observe the mechanics of a jump shot, the precision of a pass, the dynamics within the team huddle. Yet rarely do we consciously endeavour to look into the soul, to understand the deeper currents of motivation, fear, belief, and vulnerability that truly drive the human being inside the uniform. This extraordinary book you hold in your hands dares to address this vital gap. It argues passionately and persuasively that understanding the inner world of our athletes is not just a peripheral aspect of our role, but a fundamental pillar of truly impactful and transformative coaching. It posits that the wellspring of resilience, the spark of sustained motivation, the glue of authentic team cohesion, and the foundation for unlocking true potential often lie hidden within the athlete's internal landscape. More than just highlighting the need for this deeper connection, this book strives to show the profound importance of that action, looking beyond the observable performance, and, crucially, how to train yourself to do it. It recognizes that peering into the complexities of another's inner world requires more than intuition. It demands intention, skill, and a willingness to cultivate a different kind of observational power. It offers a roadmap for developing the sensitivity, the empathy, and the practical tools necessary to perceive what lies beneath the surface, to connect with athletes on a level that transcends tactics and techniques. Prepare to challenge your assumptions about what it means to truly see your players. Prepare to refine your observational skills beyond the X's and O's and cultivate a more holistic understanding of performance. This book is an invitation to elevate your coaching, not just by sharpening your strategic mind, but by opening your perceptive heart. Embrace the journey within these pages, and you may discover not only how to build better athletes, but how to foster stronger, more resilient, and more fulfilled individuals, both on and off the field. The game and the lives you touch will be richer for it. It was one of those April afternoons when spring can't decide between sunshine and sleet, and our boys jogged to the sideline with their shoulders sagging more from nerves than fatigue. The stadium clock said 2 minutes left, but the real countdown was happening in their eyes. Each tick a question about whether they belonged out here at all. We were playing one of the so-called top teams in the state, and they were clearly focused on that, even though I always tried to drill it in their heads that it doesn't matter who we're playing, the other team is playing you. I knelt in the huddle and noticed Carter, our sharp-eyed 8th grader, staring at his cleats instead of his teammates. He'd hammered shots all week in practice, yet in this game he hadn't pulled the trigger once. The white lines on the field weren't what trapped him. It was the invisible fence of doubt he'd built somewhere between warm-ups and first whistle. Instead of diagramming another play, I told the team to huddle up tight, take one slow breath, and remember the first time a lacrosse stick felt like possibility, not pressure. Helmets bumped as a few boys chuckled. Jack muttered something about backyard goals off a garage door, and suddenly the whole circle loosened. When I told Carter to show us that driveway cannon, his shoulders finally dropped, and I caught the quick spark of mischief return to his grin. They jogged back out, and the field looked exactly the same. Same chalk, same opponents, same crowd. But everything else was different. Carter dodged once, froze the slide with a glance, and zipped a pass that turned into the tying goal. No roar from the stands matched the way the bench erupted. The boys weren't celebrating strategy, they were celebrating freedom. We ended up eking out the win, but the scoreboard felt like an afterthought. The moment that mattered happened in a short time out, when a group of jittery middle schoolers remembered why they loved this wild, unpredictable game. Ever since, I've kept that lesson tucked in my pocket. The clearest path to better lacrosse sometimes starts miles away from the crease, somewhere inside a player's own story. Chapter 1. The Unseen Game. Why the Inner Athlete Matters in Lacrosse. We see it all the time, don't we? The midfielder with lightning speed and cannonball shot who vanishes in big moments. The defender whose stick skills and footwork are textbook in drills, but whose slides are consistently late or hesitant under pressure. The goalie who makes incredible saves one quarter and lets in soft goals the next. The team brimming with talent that plays tight, disconnected lacrosse when the game is on the line. As coaches, our first instinct is often tactical or technical. He needs to keep his head up when dodging. She needs to open her hips faster on the slide. We need to communicate better through the clear. We break down film, run the drills, adjust the formations, and sometimes that's exactly what's needed. But often, it's not the whole story. Often, the root cause lies deeper, in a place our traditional coaching gaze doesn't typically penetrate, the inner world of the athlete. This book is about that unseen game. It's about recognizing that the athlete standing before you is more than just a collection of skills, speed ratings, and lacrosse IQ points. They are a human being driven by a complex interplay of thoughts, emotions, beliefs, fears, and aspirations. This inner landscape, what this book refers to metaphorically as the player's soul, profoundly influences everything they do on the lacrosse field. So, what does coaching the soul mean in the context of a fast-paced, physical sport like lacrosse? It doesn't mean becoming a therapist or abandoning the critical, technical, and tactical aspects of coaching. Far from it. It means expanding our definition of effective coaching to include understanding core motivations. Why does this player really play? Lacrosse? Is it love of the game, parental pressure, social connection, a desire for validation? Knowing this helps tailor feedback and keep their internal fire lit, especially during slumps or grueling conditioning. Recognizing emotional states. How does confidence, or lack thereof, affect a player's willingness to drive to the cage or throw a risky pass? How does fear manifest as hesitation, aggression, or avoidance? How does frustration impact decision-making after a turnover or a goal against? Identifying limiting beliefs. Does a player believe they aren't clutch? Doctor. They think they're just a defender and shouldn't push transition? These internal scripts can cap their potential more effectively than any opponent. Assessing focus and presence. Is the player mentally checked in during drills or just going through the motions? Can they stay present in the chaos of a broken play or a tight game? Or does their mind wander to past mistakes or future anxieties? Gauging team connection. Beyond surface interactions, is there genuine trust and psychological safety? Do players feel supported by teammates and coaches, allowing them to play freely? Or are they playing tight, afraid to make mistakes? Consider that midfielder who disappears. Perhaps it's not a lack of skill, but a deep-seated fear of failure in high-stakes moments. That hesitant defender? Maybe past coaching criticism has made them terrified of making a mistake on a slide. The inconsistent goalie? Their performance might fluctuate wildly based on their internal self-talk and ability to reset after a goal. The talented but tight team? A lack of trust or underlying interpersonal friction could be strangling their ability to play loose and creatively. The central argument of this book is simple yet profound. An athlete's physical skills and tactical understanding are ultimately expressed through the filter of their inner state. You can have the most brilliant offensive set or defensive scheme, but if the players executing it are riddled with doubt, fear, or disconnection, its effectiveness will be dramatically compromised. Conversely, a team that is confident, connected, and resilient can often overcome gaps in pure talent or tactical sophistication. Therefore, coaching the inner athlete isn't a soft skill separate from performance. It is integral to unlocking peak performance and fostering sustained development. It requires us, as coaches, to evolve. We must remain masters of the X's and O's, the stick work, the conditioning. But we must also cultivate the ability to see beyond the surface, to listen more deeply, to ask better questions, and to build environments where players feel safe, understood, and empowered from the inside out. This journey begins not by trying to fix our players' inner worlds, but by first seeking to understand them. And crucially, as we'll explore in the next chapter, it starts with understanding ourselves. Are you ready to look beyond the ball and explore the unseen game? It's where true potential lies waiting. The early season wind bit through my jacket as I barked instructions across the practice field, convinced that sharper drills would shake the rust from our game. The boys jogged to their spots, but my own pulse was the loudest thing I heard, thumping with a mix of pride and the unspoken dread of next weekend's tournament. 5 minutes in, Ryan, a lanky, short-stick midi, fumbled a routine ground ball, and my voice cut through the grey sky before I could reel it back. The whole sideline stiffened. I'd played that position once, and the echo of my younger self missing a big scoop in high school flashed through my mind like static on an old TV. During the water break, our assistant coach handed me the stat sheet, but looked at me instead of the numbers. Behind him, Ryan twisted his gloves, eyes fixed on the turf. It hit me then. The tension in their shoulders matched the tension in mine. I wasn't coaching fundamentals. I was broadcasting my own anxiety. I called the team in, took a breath that felt like swallowing gravel, and told them my bark had been louder than my brain. We reset the drill, this time letting Ryan direct the line rotations. The clatter of sticks and laughter slowly replaced the earlier hush, and when Ryan cleanly snagged the next loose ball, I stayed silent, letting the moment speak for both of us. Driving home, the streetlight streaked across the windshield like a moving mirror, and I realized I'd spent the afternoon wrestling with myself as much as with their mechanics. The scoreboard next weekend would matter, sure, but not half as much as the one I now keep tucked behind my own ribcage, the one that lights up whenever my tone matches my true intention. Chapter 2. The Coach in the Mirror, Your Own Inner Landscape. In Chapter 1, we established the profound impact a player's inner world has on their performance and experience in lacrosse. We committed to becoming keener observers, looking beyond the X's and O's to understand the heart, mind, and soul of the athletes we lead. But before we can truly turn that perceptive gaze outward with clarity and empathy, we must first be willing to turn it inward. Before we try to understand the complex inner landscape of our players, we must courageously explore our own. Think of it like this. If you're looking through a lens covered in smudges, dust, or condensation, your view of the world will inevitably be distorted. Similarly, if our own inner state, our biases, our unchecked emotions, our hidden motivations, is murky or unexamined, Our ability to accurately perceive and effectively connect with our players will be compromised. Coaching the inner athlete begins, paradoxically, with coaching ourselves. It starts by looking into the mirror. This isn't about achieving some state of perfect enlightenment or becoming emotionless coaching robots. It's about cultivating self-awareness, the conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. Why is this so critical in the demanding environment of lacrosse coaching? Because your inner state is never truly just yours. It radiates outward. Your stress transmits to the sideline. Your frustration subtly, or not so subtly, alters your tone of voice during a drill. Your confidence, or lack thereof, can instill belief or doubt in your team during a tight fourth quarter. Your biases can shape playing time decisions and player interactions in ways you might not even realize. Your definition of success dictates the entire emotional climate of the program. Ignoring your own inner landscape isn't just a personal blind spot. It directly impacts team culture, player development, and ultimately, on-field results. So, let's start cleaning that lens. This requires honest exploration of several key areas. 1. Your coaching motivations. Why do you really do this? Take a moment. Beyond the love of lacrosse, what truly drives you to dedicate countless hours to coaching? Is it the thrill of competition and winning? The satisfaction of teaching skills and seeing players improve? The desire to mentor young men or women? A need for control or authority? A way to stay connected to the game you love? The enjoyment of strategy and tactics? A sense of community? Perhaps elements of ego or seeking external validation? There are no inherently right or wrong answers here, but being honest with yourself is crucial. Your underlying motivations heavily influence your priorities, how you handle pressure, how you define success, and how you interact with players. A coach driven primarily by winning might react very differently to a costly mistake than a coach driven primarily by player development. Understanding your why helps you align your actions with your deeper values and recognize when less conscious motivations might be hijacking your coaching. 2. Uncovering your biases, seeing beyond your preferences. We all have biases. They are mental shortcuts, often unconscious, that help us process information quickly. But in coaching, they can lead to unfair judgments and missed opportunities. Consider, do you gravitate towards players whose style mirrors your own when you played? Do you favor vocal leaders over quiet ones, assuming the latter lack intensity? Do you unconsciously give more attention to the naturally gifted athletes? Do you have preconceived notions based on a player's size, background, or reputation? Are you quicker to forgive mistakes from certain players than others? Confirmation bias, seeking evidence that confirms existing beliefs. Do you find yourself connecting more easily with players who share similar interests or personalities? Affinity bias. Recognizing potential biases doesn't make you a bad coach. It makes you a human coach. The goal is to bring these unconscious tendencies into conscious awareness so they don't unfairly dictate your evaluations, interactions, or strategic decisions. Ask yourself, am I seeing this player clearly, or am I seeing them through the filter of my own preferences? 3. Identifying your emotional triggers. What sets you off? Lacrosse games and practices are emotional environments. What specific situations reliably push your buttons? Repeated mental errors on a basic drill? Perceived lack of effort or focus? A bad call from an official at a critical moment? Players questioning your decision? Sideline criticism from parents or fans? A star player making a selfish play? Turnovers on the clear? Again? Identify your triggers. Now, more importantly, how do you typically react when triggered? Do you become visibly angry, sarcastic, withdrawn, overly critical? Do you yell? Do you shut down communication? Understanding your triggers and your habitual reactions is the first step toward managing them more constructively. Your emotional regulation, or lack thereof, sets the tone for the entire team's ability to handle pressure. 4. Communication. Under pressure. Clarity or chaos. When the game is frantic, the clock is ticking, and the pressure is high, how does your communication change? Do you become more concise and clear? More frantic and less coherent? More demanding and critical? Less likely to listen to player input? Prone to making emotional rather than rational tactical calls? Effective communication is vital, especially when adversity strikes. Stress can degrade our ability to communicate clearly and listen effectively. Being aware of your tendencies allows you to consciously choose more productive communication strategies even when your heart rate is soaring. 5. Your definition of success. More than just the scoreboard? How do you, deep down, measure a successful season? Is it solely based on wins, losses, and championships? Or does it include measurable player skill development, a positive and supportive team culture, players demonstrating resilience and good sportsmanship, graduating players who feel positively impacted by the program, seeing the team perform to its potential regardless of the final score? Your operational definition of success powerfully shapes the team environment and player experience. If winning is the only metric, players may become overly fearful of mistakes, and the focus can shift away from the developmental process. A broader definition doesn't diminish the desire to win, but it creates a healthier, more sustainable environment for growth. Developing your self-awareness. Practical steps. Okay, exploring these areas is one thing, but how do you actively cultivate this crucial self-awareness amidst the chaos of coaching? Post-practice game reflection. Take just 5 to 10 minutes after sessions. Jot down notes, mental or written. What went well? What challenges arose? How did I react to key moments, especially stressful ones? What emotions did I feel? How did my state impact the team? Seek trusted feedback. Ask an assistant coach, a mentor, or even a former player you trust for honest feedback on your communication style, emotional reactions, and decision-making, particularly under pressure. Be open to hearing things that might be uncomfortable. Mindful pauses. During intense moments in practices or games, consciously take a deep breath before reacting. This brief pause can create space between the trigger and your response, allowing for a more intentional choice. Identify patterns. Look for recurring themes in your reflections and feedback. Do you consistently get frustrated by the same types of errors? Do you tend to react similarly in high-pressure situations? Recognizing patterns is key to changing them. Model authenticity. Don't be afraid to occasionally, and appropriately, acknowledge your own feelings or mistakes to your team, saying, "Team, I was really frustrated by that drill execution, and I didn't communicate my instructions clearly enough. Let's reset." Models self-awareness and accountability far more powerfully than pretending to be infallible. Reflection. Exercises. Take some time this week to consider these prompts. Motivation check-in. Honestly list your top 3 reasons for coaching. Lacrosse right now. How did these motivations influence your decisions or interactions during the last practice or game? 2. Trigger tracker. Recall the last time you felt intensely frustrated, angry, or anxious during a coaching situation. What specifically triggered the emotion? What was your immediate internal and external reaction? What was the impact on the players or the situation? 3. Bias audit, mini. Think about your current roster. Are there certain players you connect with more easily, or whose mistakes you overlook more readily? Why might that be? Are there others you struggle to connect with or judge more harshly? Be honest with yourself about potential underlying biases. Looking in the mirror isn't always comfortable. It requires humility and a genuine desire to grow. But it's not an exercise in self-criticism. It's an investment in your coaching effectiveness. By understanding your own inner landscape, your motivations, biases, triggers, and communication patterns, you become better equipped to manage yourself, make clearer decisions, and, crucially, build the kind of deep trust with your players that allows you to truly understand and coach their inner game. And building that trust is exactly where we're headed in Chapter 3. The drizzle had already soaked through my clipboard when I noticed Eli hanging back as we set up the chaos drill. He was our newest defenseman. Strong kid, but every time the drill got loud, he shrank a little, like the shouting itself was a second opponent. Part of me wanted to crank the intensity even higher to toughen him up, yet another part remembered how a bark can sound like a bite to a player still finding his place. Instead of launching straight into reps, I whistled the boys over and told them we'd try something different. Every turnover had to be followed by a 5-second reset, where the ball carrier called out the teammate he wanted beside him on the clear. Confusion flickered across a few faces, but soon the field filled with quick shouts of "Luke here" or "Caleb with me." The tempo stayed high, but the voices changed, lighter, almost playful, because each name was an invitation instead of an order. Midway through, Eli muffed a ground ball and froze. Before I could step in, our captain Ben jogged back, tapped Eli's helmet, and called, "Eli clears with me." No eye rolls, no sarcastic claps, just a simple cue that wrapped its arm around the moment. They reset, executed the clear cleanly, and the sideline erupted as if we'd won a playoff game. I watched Eli's shoulders rise, then settle into a posture I hadn't seen all season, ready but unguarded. Practice ended with muddy jerseys and wider smiles than usual. While the boys packed up, Eli lingered, twirling his stick like he finally owned it. "Coach," he said, almost whispering, "thanks for the shout rule." I shrugged, though inside I felt that quiet surge you get when a plan you barely articulated finds its target. Driving away, wipers thumping, I realized we hadn't just practiced clears. We'd rehearsed trust. The drill would fade from memory, but the echo of boys calling each other's names in the rain would stick, stitching the team together in a way no whiteboard ever could. Chapter 3. Building the Container. Creating Psychological Safety and Trust. Having taken that crucial, often uncomfortable look in the mirror in Chapter 2, we begin to see our own inner landscape more clearly, our motivations, biases, and triggers. This self-awareness is the starting point, the essential groundwork. But understanding ourselves, while vital, isn't enough to truly connect with the inner world of our players. We need to create an environment where they feel safe enough to reveal that world to us and to each other. We need to build the container. Think of this container as the team culture, the emotional and psychological atmosphere you cultivate. Is it a high-pressure cooker where mistakes are punished, questions are seen as weakness, and players wear emotional armor? Or is it a supportive crucible where challenges are met with encouragement, vulnerability is treated with respect, and players feel safe enough to be authentic, learn, and take the risks necessary for growth? This latter environment is one characterized by psychological safety. Popularized by Harvard researcher Amy Edmondson, psychological safety, in a team context means members feel safe to take interpersonal risks. For a lacrosse team, this translates to feeling safe to ask questions when they don't understand a drill, or concept. Feeling safe to admit a mistake without fear of undue humiliation, or harsh punishment. Feeling safe to offer a different perspective or suggest an idea. Feeling safe to challenge the status quo respectfully. Feeling safe to be themselves without needing to put on a facade for coaches or teammates. Why is this so critical? Because high-pressure, low-safety environments stifle the very things needed for peak performance and development in a complex sport like lacrosse: learning, innovation, collaboration, and resilience. Players who are afraid to make mistakes will play tentatively. Players who are afraid to ask questions won't fully grasp concepts. Teams lacking psychological safety often exhibit poor communication, blame shifting, and an inability to adapt under pressure. Trust, the non-negotiable key to the inner game. More pointedly, psychological safety is built upon a foundation of trust. And trust is the non-negotiable key that unlocks the door to the inner athlete we discussed in Chapter 1. Players simply will not share their deeper struggles, their anxieties before a big game, their slumping confidence after a few missed shots, their confusion about their role, their fear of letting teammates down, if they do not fundamentally trust their coach and their teammates. They will offer surface-level answers, nod politely, and keep their internal world carefully guarded. As a coach, you'll be left observing the surface ripples, poor performance, bad body language, without understanding the deeper currents causing them. Without trust, you cannot effectively coach the soul. Building this trust isn't about being soft or lowering standards. It's about being consciously relational and intentional in how you interact with and structure your team environment. It's built brick by brick through consistent actions over time. Here are the essential building blocks. 1. Consistency and predictability. Players need to know what to expect from you and the environment. Wild swings in your mood, inconsistent application of rules, or unpredictable consequences create anxiety and erode trust. Strive for consistency in your energy as much as possible, your expectations for effort and behaviour, and how you handle both success and failure. When players know the goalposts won't suddenly move, they feel safer navigating the field between them. 2. Fairness and transparency. While fair doesn't always mean equal, especially regarding playing time, players need to perceive that decisions are made impartially and based on clear criteria, not favoritism or hidden agendas. Be as transparent as possible, age appropriately, about why decisions are made, the rationale behind practice plans, strategic adjustments, or even playing time allocations. Addressing perceived unfairness directly and respectfully is crucial. When players understand the why, even if they don't love the decision, it fosters trust in the process. 3. Clear, honest communication. Mystery breeds mistrust. Communicate expectations clearly and directly. Follow through on what you say you will do. Be honest in your feedback. Deliver constructive criticism straightforwardly but respectfully, focusing on behaviour and performance, not character. Avoid passive aggression, sarcasm that bites, or the silent treatment. Open, honest dialogue, even when difficult, builds bridges. Ambiguity and avoidance build walls. 4. Active listening. The trust accelerator. We touched on this in the last chapter's preview, and it's vital here. When players feel genuinely heard and understood, even if you don't ultimately agree with them or grant their request, it builds massive trust. Put down the phone, make eye contact, ask clarifying questions, paraphrase to ensure understanding. So, if I'm hearing you right, you felt hesitant on that slide because showing you value their perspective makes them more likely to share it. 5. Constructive error. Handling. How you and the team respond to mistakes is perhaps the single most potent signal of psychological safety. If errors are met with yelling, public shaming, immediate benching for minor slips, or excessive punishment, players will learn to hide mistakes, avoid risks, and play scared. Instead, normalize mistakes. Frame them as inevitable parts of learning and growth in a fast-paced game. Focus on the next play. Teach players how to reset quickly. Separate the player from the mistake. Address the action, not the person's character. Use errors as data. Analyze why the mistake happened, misunderstanding, physical error, decision-making lapse, and use it to inform future coaching or practice design. Encourage peer support. Foster a culture where teammates pick each other up after an error rather than pointing fingers. 6. Demonstrate genuine care. Show your players you care about them as people, not just as lacrosse players filling a role. Learn something about their lives outside of lacrosse, within appropriate professional boundaries. Show empathy when they are struggling, on or off the field. Acknowledge their effort and attitude, not just their goals or saves. Small gestures of genuine interest and care go a long way in building relational trust. Trust building in action. Lacrosse contexts. Tryouts and cuts. Handle these high anxiety moments with empathy and clarity. Provide honest, specific feedback to those who are cut, delivered privately and respectfully. Clearly communicate the criteria for making the team beforehand. Playing time discussions. Be prepared for these conversations. Listen to the player's perspective. Explain your decisions based on observable performance, team needs, and developmental goals. Offer concrete steps the player can take to earn more time. Avoid making promises you can't keep. During practice. When a player struggles with a drill, resist the urge to. Show immediate frustration. Ask questions to understand their confusion. What are you seeing there? What part feels tricky? Encourage teammates to help each other. Game day mistakes. During timeouts or on the sideline after an error, focus on the next play and brief, constructive feedback. Avoid dwelling on the mistake or singling players out negatively in front of the team. Your sideline demeanor speaks volumes. The environment speaks volumes. Finally, recognize that the physical environment and team norms contribute significantly to the container. Is the locker room a place of camaraderie or division? Are jokes typically supportive or sarcastic and cutting? Do seniors integrate rookies, or is there a harsh hierarchy? Do team rules and traditions foster inclusion or alienation? Be intentional about shaping these aspects of the team culture to align with the principles of trust and safety. Building this container of trust and psychological safety isn't a quick fix. It's an ongoing commitment woven into the fabric of your daily coaching actions. It requires patience, consistency, and the self-awareness we explored in Chapter 2. But it is the essential bedrock upon which a deeper understanding of your players can be built. Once this foundation of trust is laid, players are more likely to let their guard down. They become more willing, consciously or unconsciously, to reveal glimpses of their inner world. And that is when your sharpened observational skills, which we will delve into in the next chapter, can truly begin to see beyond the surface. With trust established, you're ready to truly start observing the unseen game. The drill looked crisp enough on paper. 3, man weave into a shot. Yet something felt off from the first rotation. Brendan's passes hit targets, but his shoulders stayed tucked almost to his ears. When he jogged back in line, he kept fiddling with his bottom hand, like the glove suddenly didn't fit. No muttering, no eye, rolls, just a quiet storm brewing one fidget at a time. Instead of stopping the drill, I slid down the line and watched between reps. Liam, usually the chatterbox, had gone radio, silent, tapping the throat of his stick against his thigh every time Brendan touched the ball. The weave kept flowing, but the rhythm felt tight. Notes played a half-step sharp. On the next turnover, I caught a flash of narrowed eyes from Liam and a quick head, shake from Brendan that never reached his teammates. I whistled them over, pretending to adjust cones, and asked for a water break. As they walked off, Brendan's gaze stayed glued to his laces, while Liam bounced on his toes, jaw flexing. That was all the confirmation I needed. The drill wasn't broken. Our connection was. I paired them for the simplest task I could think of. 30 seconds of silent stick shuffles. Eyes up, no throws allowed until both gave a nod. The first 10 seconds were awkward breathing and squeaking gloves. Then Brendan finally looked up, nudged the handle forward, and Liam mirrored him. The nods came, the passes followed, and within a minute the shuffle turned almost playful, shoulders loosening like thawing ice. When we restarted the weave, the rhythm clicked. Brendan ran bigger, Liam's voice returned, and the rest of the line surged with them as if the drill had just found its missing drumbeat. Driving home later, I realized we'd spent less than 2 minutes on actual correction and far longer reading the space between the passes. The slumped shoulders, the silent jaw clench, the way confidence can leak through a glove seam before a word is spoken. The fix wasn't a new pattern. It was noticing the pattern that wasn't showing up on the stat sheet at all. Chapter 4. Sharpening your gaze. Observing beyond the ball. In the last chapter, we focused on meticulously building the container, fostering an environment of trust and psychological safety where players feel secure enough to be authentic. Now, with that crucial foundation laid, we shift our focus. How do we, as coaches, actually perceive the subtle cues that reveal the inner state of our players within that safe space? It requires consciously sharpening our gaze, adjusting our observational lens beyond the flight of the ball, the execution of a dodge, or the success of a slide. It demands we become keen observers of the human element within the game. For years, we've trained our eyes to track the X's and O's, the technical flaws, the tactical breakdowns. That skill remains essential. But now, we need to add layers to our perception. We need to learn to see the signs of confidence or doubt in a player's posture before a crucial free position shot, to hear the subtle shift in team energy after a momentum-swinging goal against, to notice the supportive or critical interaction between teammates after a turnover. This isn't about mind reading. It's about paying closer attention to the rich stream of non-verbal and behavioral data players constantly provide. Beyond the X's and O's, what to look for? Let's break down some key areas to intentionally observe. 1. Body language. The unspoken narrative. A player's body often tells a story their words might not. Look beyond the obvious, like throwing a stick in frustration, for the subtler cues. Pre-performance rituals. Watch players before critical actions like shots, face-offs, or important defensive stands. Are their movements fluid and routine, suggesting focus and confidence? Or are they hesitant, rushed, or fidgety, potentially indicating anxiety or doubt? Response to errors. This is incredibly revealing. After a missed shot, turnover, or defensive breakdown, what happens? Do they quickly reset, make eye contact, hustle back? Or does their head drop, shoulders slump, and they avoid eye contact or jog back slowly? Watch for self-critical gestures. Hitting helmet, shaking head excessively. Effort and engagement. Between the whistles. How do players carry? Themselves during transitions, water breaks, or moving between drills? Is there purpose in their step? Or are they just going through the motions? Notice the difference between genuine hustle and fake hustle designed to avoid scrutiny. Engagement often shows in attentive posture during instruction and active participation, even in less glamorous drills. Confidence versus tentativeness. Confidence often manifests as upright. Posture, playing big, head up while carrying the ball, decisive movements, and a willingness to communicate assertively. Tentativeness might look like playing hunched or small, head down, hesitant footwork, especially when initiating dodges or slides, and quieter communication. Frustration, anxiety cues. Look for physical signs of tension. Clenched. Jaw, tight shoulders, shallow or rapid breathing, fidgeting, jerky or rushed movements, or overly aggressive physical play that seems disproportionate to the situation. 2. Energy levels. Tuning into the vibe. Experienced coaches often talk about feeling the team's energy. This isn't mystical. It's an intuitive reading based on collective body language, communication volume and tone, and overall pace intensity. Learn to consciously tune in. Individual energy. Does a player seem consistently flat or lethargic compared to their norm? Are they unusually frantic or hyperactive? Recognize signs of potential burnout, disengagement, low confidence, flatness, or sometimes uncontrolled anxiety, frantic energy. Team energy. Assess the collective atmosphere during different phases. Is warm-up focused and purposeful, or sluggish and social? Do drills start crisply, or do you constantly need to inject energy? How does the team's energy respond to scoring a goal versus giving one up? Does positive momentum build, or does one mistake lead to a collective dip? Recognizing these shifts allows you to intervene proactively. Third, player interactions. The relational web. How players communicate and connect, or don't, reveals much about team cohesion, trust, and individual states. Verbal communication. Is it constructive? Slide here. Got your help? Or critical? Why didn't you slide? Is it frequent and clear, or sparse and mumbled? Listen to the tone as much as the words. Non-verbal support. Criticism. Watch how players react to each other's. Plays. Do they offer a head nod, a stick tap, or words of encouragement after a good play or a tough mistake? Or is there eye-rolling, dismissive gestures, or visible frustration directed at teammates? Celebrations and setbacks. Who celebrates goals together? How does the team collectively react immediately after being scored upon? Do they come together or splinter apart? Inclusion and isolation. Does anyone seem consistently on the periphery? During drills or breaks, who initiates conversations? Are rookies integrated or left on the fringes? Observe the dynamics on the sideline. Who is engaged? Who is withdrawn? A note on micro-expressions. While fleeting facial expressions lasting a fraction of a second can sometimes reveal concealed emotions, accurately interpreting them is extremely difficult and requires specialized training. For practical coaching, focus on more sustained patterns of body language, energy, and interaction. Developing your perceptive skills. How to practice. Sharpening this observational gaze takes intention and practice. Dedicated observation time. You can't observe everything at once while also correcting technique and managing drills. Intentionally dedicate short periods, even 2 to 3 minutes, during practice where your primary goal is to observe one specific aspect, e.g., for the next rotation of this drill, I'm only watching body language after turnovers. Utilize your staff. Delegate observational tasks. Ask an assistant coach to specifically track player interactions during a scrimmage or monitor the energy level and communication on the defensive end. Pool your observations afterward. Video review. The human lens. Watch game or practice film with a new purpose. Yes, track tactical execution, but also pause frequently. Look at players away from the ball. Rewatch key moments, goals for against, turnovers, big saves misses, specifically to analyze player reactions, body language, and sideline behavior. What do you notice now that you missed live? Watch the transitions. Pay attention during the in-between moments. Water breaks, jogging between drills, entering, leaving the field, pre-game warm-ups, post-game handshakes. These less structured moments can often reveal authentic moods and relationships. Know your baseline. Every player has a typical demeanor. Get to know each individual's normal patterns of body language, communication, and energy. This baseline allows you to more easily spot deviations that might indicate something significant is going on internally: stress, low confidence, fatigue, excitement, etc. Interpretation. Clues, not conclusions. This is critical. Your observations are valuable data points, but they are not definitive diagnoses of a player's inner state. Slumped shoulders might signal low confidence, but they could also mean the player is physically exhausted or simply has poor posture. Quietness might indicate disengagement, but it could also be focused concentration or just that player's natural personality. Use your observations as invitations to curiosity, not as final judgments. They provide the starting point for checking in with a player, for asking empathetic questions, for opening a dialogue. Think, I noticed specific observation. How were you feeling during that part of practice? Or, seemed like the energy dipped after they scored that goal. What was going through your mind then? Lacrosse observation checklist. Examples to consider. Offense. Confidence, hesitation, initiating dodges. Body language after a feed isn't caught. Communication, setting up plays. Eye contact with goalie before shooting. Defense. Communication intensity, clarity on slides, help. Posture after. Getting beat 1v1. Urgency approaching ground balls. Assertiveness in checking. Transition, clears, rides. Urgency and communication levels, body. Language after a failed clear or allowing an easy clear. Decision-making speed, confident versus panicked. Face-offs, pre-whistle routine and focus. Reaction immediately after a win or loss. Communication with wings. Goalies, stance and presence in cage. Reaction to goals against, quick. Reset versus dwelling. Communication with defense. Body language during opponents' extended possessions. Sideline, engagement level of non-dressing players. How do players? Coming off the field, interact with coaches, teammates. What's the collective reaction to big plays, positive or negative? Sharpening your observational gaze in this way adds a vital layer to your coaching toolkit. It allows you to gather richer, more nuanced information about your players, moving beyond just what they do to understanding how they do it and potentially why. This deeper seeing, built on the foundation of trust from Chapter 3, doesn't give you all the answers, but it tells you where to start looking and what questions to ask. And asking those questions effectively is precisely what we'll cover in Chapter 5. The sun was already dipping when Liam plopped onto the bench, visor tilted low so I couldn't read his eyes. He'd just missed a point-blank shot that would have clinched our scrimmage, and the other boys swarmed the far cage, reliving their own highlights. I opened my mouth to offer a quick fix, but the words felt stale before they left my tongue. So I closed it again and just sat beside him, cleats scraping the gravel in quiet sync. After a minute of nothing but distant laughter, I asked, "What did the crease look like to you right then?" Liam shrugged, fiddling with the mesh. I let the shrug hang in the air. Another few breaths, and he muttered, "It felt small, like the cage shrank." I nodded, nudged a loose pebble with my toe, and waited. "And," I finally prompted, soft as a post-game whistle. And I kept hearing the bench yell, "Rip it," he said. Got so loud in my head I didn't see the slide coming. We traced the play backward together, his first dodge, the quick check he shrugged, the moment the roar ballooned between his ears. Each detail surfaced because I only asked simple, open doors and let the silence pull the answers through. Liam's shoulders eased as he talked, like every word untied a knot in his chest. When practice ended, I told him, "Next time the noise swells, pick one thing to notice. Maybe the goalie's left foot, maybe your own breathing. What do you think might work?" He thought, then tapped the bar of his helmet. "Counting the steps," he said. 4 steps and shoot, no matter what they yell." I slapped his gloves, not to seal a promise, but to honor the plan he'd just built himself. Walking off under the pink-orange sky, I realized the practice hadn't been about mechanics at all. It was a lesson in holding space long enough for a player to hear his own voice above the crowd, and for a coach to trust that quiet questions sometimes carry the loudest answers. Chapter 5. The Art of Deep Listening and Powerful Questions. In the last chapter, we sharpened our gaze, learning to observe the subtle but revealing cues of body language, energy levels, and player interactions that hint at the inner state of our athletes. We learned to see beyond the ball. But observation, no matter how keen, only provides clues, the starting points. To truly understand the why behind the slumped shoulders, the hesitant dodge, or the flat team energy, we need to move beyond just watching. We need to engage in meaningful dialogue. This requires mastering 2 fundamental yet often underutilized communication skills in the coaching world: deep listening and asking powerful questions. For many coaches, the default communication mode is directive, instructing, correcting, telling. We have knowledge and experience, and we want to impart it efficiently to improve performance. Shoot low to high. Slide faster. Communicate on D. This mode is necessary, of course. But to access the inner game, the thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and motivations driving behavior, we need to shift gears. We need to move from primarily using a megaphone to also employing a finely tuned receiver. We need to become guides who help players explore their own landscape, not just map givers who dictate the route. Beyond hearing, the power of deep listening. There's a world of difference between simply hearing what someone says and truly listening. Hearing is passive, automatic. Listening, especially deep listening, is active, intentional, and requires conscious effort. It involves fully concentrating, tuning out internal and external distractions, understanding, comprehending the speaker's message, both explicit and implicit, responding, providing verbal and non-verbal cues that show you are engaged and tracking, remembering, retaining the information shared. Why cultivate this in the fast-paced world of lacrosse coaching? It builds trust. As we discussed in Chapter 3, feeling genuinely heard is a powerful trust accelerator. When players feel understood, they are more likely to open up. It gathers better information. You gain deeper insights into a player's perspective, challenges, and thought processes than you would from surface-level interactions. It empowers players. Active listening conveys respect and validates the player's experience, fostering their sense of agency and self-worth. It encourages self-reflection, sometimes the act of being truly listened, to helps the speaker clarify their own thoughts and feelings. Active listening techniques, tuning your receiver. Here are practical skills to enhance your listening. 1. Be fully present. This sounds simple, but it's crucial. When a player is talking to you, minimize distractions. Put down your phone, angle your body towards them, make eye contact. Signal that they have your undivided attention, even if just for a minute or two between drills. Second, paraphrase for clarity. Periodically restate the player's core message in your own words. This isn't mimicry, it's checking for understanding. Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, you felt the double team coming late, which is why you forced that pass? This confirms your tracking and gives the player a chance to clarify if you've misunderstood. 3. Reflect feelings. Gently acknowledge the emotions you perceive behind the words. This validates their experience without necessarily agreeing or disagreeing. Sounds like you were pretty frustrated after that sequence, or seems like you're feeling more confident taking charge on the clear. Naming the emotion can often help diffuse its intensity or open the door to further discussion. Use non-verbal encouragers. Small cues show you're engaged. Nodding, leaning in slightly, maintaining an open posture. Simple vocalizations like, uh-huh, okay, or I see. 5. Embrace silence. Resist the urge to immediately fill pauses in the conversation. Silence isn't always awkward. It can be productive. It gives the player space to think more deeply, gather their thoughts, or muster the courage to say something difficult. Don't rush to offer solutions or jump in with your own assessment. Shifting from directing to asking, the power of questions. While listening helps you receive information, asking powerful questions helps you elicit deeper insights and encourage player self-discovery. Often, a well-posed question is far more impactful than a direct statement. Closed questions? These usually elicit a one-word answer, yes, no, and are useful for confirming facts. Did you see the cutter? They don't typically open up dialogue about the inner game. Open-ended questions. These require more thought and elaboration, inviting the player to share their perspective, feelings, or thought process. They often start with what, how, or explore perspectives. Characteristics of powerful coaching. Questions. Genuinely curious, asked with a true desire to understand, not to trap, or lead the player to a predetermined answer. Open-ended, cannot be answered with a simple yes or no. Thought-provoking, encourage reflection and awareness. Focused on learning and possibility, help players analyze situations, learn from experience, and consider future actions. Examples. What were you seeing on that play? Instead of, why didn't you? See the slide. How did that feel when you made that stop? acknowledges success and internal experience. What was going through your mind leading up to that shot? Explores thought process. What did you learn from that defensive stand? Focuses on learning. What felt different about that successful clear compared to the earlier ones? Encourages comparison and analysis. How could we approach that situation differently next time? Focuses on future solutions. What's one thing you could focus on in the next drill to feel more confident? Empowers player agency. Applying listening and questioning. In lacrosse coaching. Post-game practice debriefs. Shift from a monologue to a dialogue. Ask team-wide questions like, what was working well for us in the first half? Where did we feel things started to break down? What was the energy like on the sideline? Individual check-ins. Use your observations, Chapter 4, as a starting point. Hey, I noticed during the transition drill, it seemed like maybe you were a bit hesitant. What was going on for you then? Analyzing errors. Instead of immediately correcting, inquire first. Tell me what you saw developing on that play. What option looked best to you at that moment? What happened right before the turnover? This helps diagnose if the error was technical, tactical, decisional, or perhaps confidence-related. During practice, briefly check in while players are working. How is that new stick feeling? What's the biggest challenge for you in this drill? What are you noticing about the defense's positioning? Listening to what's not said. Sometimes, the most valuable information lies in the gaps. The topics a player avoids, the questions they don't answer directly, the hesitations, or the moments where their words don't quite match their body language, observed in Chapter 4. Don't force these issues, but make a mental note. These discrepancies can signal underlying concerns or sensitivities. You might gently probe later. I noticed you didn't mention X. Is everything okay there? Or simply use the awareness to be more attuned to that player's needs. Conclusion. Opening the door. Mastering deep listening and powerful questioning is like learning a new language, the language of the inner game. It requires patience, practice, and a genuine shift away from always needing to have the answers yourself. By truly hearing our players and asking questions that invite reflection rather than simple compliance, we open the door to understanding their motivations, fears, beliefs, and thought processes. These communication skills, built upon the foundation of trust, Chapter 3, and informed by keen observation, Chapter 4, allow us to gather invaluable insights into the why behind on-field performance. In the next chapter, we will explore exactly how to connect these internal states, the confidence, the fear, the focus, the motivation, directly to the skills, tactics, and outcomes we see on the lacrosse field. The field lights flickered on just as Owen stepped up for the face-off, shoulders pinched so tight his chin strap creaked. We'd spent weeks on clamp speed and wrist torque, yet as the whistle blew, he froze a half second and lost possession clean. I felt the groan ripple down our sideline before I could stop it. At halftime, I found him pacing a lonely stripe behind the team huddle, mumbling sequence reps under his breath, like a kid cramming vocab words. Instead of reteaching technique, I asked him to close his eyes and tell me where he felt the most tight. In my grip, he said. I told him to lose the gloves for a minute and shake out his hands, wiggle the thumbs, then I pulled on each of his fingers. He instinctively took one slow breath for every finger. Third quarter, same whistle, different Owen. His clamp wasn't faster, it was freer. He snapped the ball left, scooped it in stride, and the attack erupted downfield. 2 possessions later, he tried a pinch and pop he'd never dared in a game. Won it too. And our bench surged like a tide breaking a dam. When the buzzer finally cut through the night, Owen jogged over grinning, palm open as if still feeling the ball. All I did was breathe, he said, half astonished. I pointed at the scoreboard's tiny glow and shrugged. Hardware's been there all season. Software just needed a reboot. Driving home, stick bags thumping in the trunk, I replayed that moment. The quiet breath that turned tension into timing. timing into control, and control into points. Next practice, we'll drill clamps again. Sure, but first we'll check the operating system hiding behind every pair of gloves. Chapter 6. Linking Soul to Skill. How Inner State Drives On-Field Performance. In the previous chapters, we've journeyed inward, first by examining our own coaching landscape, Chapter 2, then by building a container of trust, Chapter 3, learning to observe deeper cues, Chapter 4, and finally, mastering the art of listening and questioning to understand our players' inner worlds, Chapter 5. Now, we arrive at a crucial junction. Connecting that inner world directly to the skills, decisions, and outcomes we see between the lines. The core premise of this chapter, and indeed this book, is this: the inner game directly drives the outer game. Think of it this way: a player's physical talents, stick skills, speed, and tactical knowledge are like the high-performance hardware of a computer. But their inner state, their confidence, focus, fear, trust, and motivation, is the software running that hardware. Flawless hardware running glitchy software will inevitably lead to subpar performance. Conversely, optimizing the software allows the hardware to function at its peak potential. In lacrosse, a player's mind and emotions are constantly influencing their physical execution. The mind-body connection in lacrosse. This isn't just philosophical, it's physiological. When a player feels anxious or fearful, their body releases stress hormones. This can cause muscle tension, restricting fluid movement essential for accurate shooting or agile dodging. It can lead to shallow breathing, reducing endurance and focus. Cognitive function can also be impaired. Analysis paralysis sets in, decision-making slows down, and perceptual fields narrow, causing players to miss open teammates or fail to see defensive rotations. Conversely, when a player feels confident and focused, their body is more relaxed and responsive. Movements become smoother, more automatic, in the flow. They can access skills more readily under pressure. Decision-making is quicker and clearer because their mind isn't cluttered with self-doubt or fear of consequences. Understanding this mind-body link is fundamental to appreciating how inner states translate to the field. Dissecting key inner states and their on-field impact. Let's examine how specific inner states, which you now have tools to observe and inquire about, manifest in lacrosse performance. Confidence. This is the bedrock belief in one's ability to succeed. Impact. Fuels assertiveness, encourages calculated risk-taking, enhances skill execution under pressure, promotes resilience after mistakes. Lacrosse examples. Confident. Attacks the cage aggressively. Throws accurate. Passes into tight windows. Shoots with conviction, letting it fly. Initiates decisive slides. Carries the ball strongly through checks. Lacking confidence. Pulls out of dodges early. Avoids. Challenging passes. Aims shots leading to misses or weak attempts. Hesitates on slides. Gets easily stripped of the ball. Fear of failure, mistakes, judgment. The anticipation of negative. Consequences. Impact. Causes hesitation. Promotes conservative. Play not to lose mentality. Leads to physical tension and errors. Impairs decision-making. Can lead to avoidance behavior. Lacrosse examples. Fearful. Consistently late or incomplete slides. False slides. Forces passes to get rid of the ball quickly, avoids driving to the net, shoots high-wide due to tension, plays too far off their defensive mark, commits nervous penalties. Fearless, appropriately. Plays assertively but within control, willing to make the necessary play even if risky, recovers quickly from mistakes, embraces challenging matchups. Focus, concentration. The ability to direct and maintain attention. Impact. Improves anticipation and reaction time. Enhances. Decision quality, seeing the field. Reduces mental errors and unforced turnovers. Facilitates clear communication. Enables execution under pressure. Fosters a next play mindset. Lacrosse examples. Focused. Efficiently clears the ball under riding pressure. recognizes slides, rotations quickly, makes smart passes, minimizes dropped balls, shock bad decisions, communicates defensive adjustments clearly, executes set plays correctly, quickly resets after a goal against. Chaku unfocused, turns the ball over on clears, misses defensive. Assignments, makes poor passing choices, commits mental errors, struggles to hear process instructions, dwells on past mistakes. Trust in self, teammates, system, belief in the reliability and competence of oneself, others, and the team's plan. Impact, enables cohesive team play, offense and defense, facilitates quick ball movement, supports effective communication, encourages players to fulfill their roles, builds resilience after setbacks. Lacrosse examples. Trusting. Offense moves the ball quickly, anticipating. Teammates cuts. Defense slides and recovers seamlessly, knowing help is there. Players execute their roles in clears, rides, without trying to do too much. Team regroups effectively after conceding a goal. Lacking trust. Offense becomes stagnant, relying on one versus one. Dodges. Defense features late help or blown assignments. Players get drawn out of position trying to cover for others. Finger pointing emerges after errors. Motivation. The driving force behind effort and persistence. Impact. Determines work rate, especially in practice/conditioning, fuels resilience through adversity, strengthens commitment, encourages extra effort, influences attitude and enjoyment. Lacrosse examples. Motivated, intrinsically, shows consistent high effort in drills, seeks extra reps, wall ball, shooting, maintains positive attitude during challenges, celebrates team success genuinely, plays with passion. Lacking motivation, goes through the motions in practice, avoids demanding drills, complains frequently, shows little enthusiasm for team achievements, effort level drops when fatigued or discouraged. Analysing lacrosse scenarios through the inner lens. Think about common game situations and how these inner states play out. Man up, man down. Requires immense focus to execute assignments. Trust that teammates will do their jobs, and confidence to make the right play under pressure. Passing or shooting on man up, holding position, or sliding effectively on man down. Fear can lead to rushed shots or passive defense. Transition play, clears, rides. Success hinges on focus, seeing the field, anticipating pressure. Decision making, driven by confidence versus fear, and trust in outlets in the riding scheme. Panic, fear leads to turnovers. Composure, focus, confidence leads to efficiency. Close games, late game pressure. This is where the inner game often decides the outcome. Which team maintains focus? Which players exhibit confidence to want the ball? Which team manages fear and avoids critical errors? Which team shows deeper trust in each other and the system when fatigued? Shooting slumps, defensive ruts. Often, technical flaws are less the issue than a crisis of confidence or a pervasive fear of repeating mistakes. The player starts overthinking, tenses up, and the slump deepens. A classic mind-body feedback loop, helping players make the connection. As a coach, understanding these links isn't enough. You need to help your players recognize them too. This builds their self-awareness and empowers them to start managing their own inner game. 1. Debrief with awareness. Use the listening and questioning skills from Chapter 5. Instead of just saying, "We need to shoot better," ask, "What was going through your mind on those shots in the third quarter?" Or, "How did our confidence level feel as a team after they went on that run?" Explicitly link observed behavior to potential feelings or thoughts. 2. Use film for inner game review. Watching film isn't just for X's and O's. Pause the tape and ask players, individually or in groups. Look at your body language here before the face-off. What does that tell you about your mindset? What were you thinking, feeling right before making this pass? Let's watch our communication on this defensive stand. Does it sound confident? Focused? How did we emotionally respond right after this turnover? 3. Introduce mental skills. Preview. Once players start seeing the connection. Oh, when I get nervous, I grip my stick too tight and my shot goes high. It opens the door to teaching them basic mental skills, like visualization, breathing techniques, positive self-talk, or goal setting, to manage those inner states more effectively. We'll dive deeper into these tools in Chapter 8. Conclusion: the undeniable link. The connection between a lacrosse player's inner state and their on-field performance is undeniable and profound. Confidence fuels aggression and execution. Fear breeds hesitation and errors. Focus sharpens decision-making and reduces mistakes. Trust enables cohesion and flow. Motivation drives effort and resilience. By learning to see and understand these connections, you move beyond being just a technical or tactical instructor and become a more holistic and impactful coach. You start addressing the root causes of performance issues, not just the symptoms. Recognizing these general links is the first step. The next layer of understanding, which we'll explore in Chapter 7, is appreciating that each player possesses a unique internal blueprint. Their personalities, backgrounds, and experiences mean these inner states manifest and respond differently for each individual on your roster. The storm clouds broke just before practice, leaving the turf slick and shining like a fresh pull-up from the pier. I paired the boys for one-on-one dodges, and that's when the contrast hit me. Zach bounced on his toes, begging to go first, while James hung back, eyes fixed on the laces of his cleats as if they held secret instructions. Zach exploded through his reps, loud, fearless, even trash-talking the cones. And I kept the energy high, tossing quick corrections and louder praise his way. But when James's turn came, the same volume made him stutter step, cradle too tight, and sail shots over the cage, almost taking out bystander birds, building their spring nest. The drill unraveled like wet tape. I waved James aside and dropped my voice until it barely carried over the distant highway hum. "Walk me through the move you see in your head," I said. He traced it slowly in the air, feet whispering across the slick turf. We practiced it at quarter speed, no defenders, just rhythm. When it clicked, I tapped his shoulder and said, "Next rep's yours." Back in line, Zach demanded the spotlight again, so I fed it to him, cheers and all. James stepped up afterward, silent but sure, and slid past his man with a patient sway that made the rest of the line gasp. Different tempos, same end. The drill stitched itself back together, slick turf or not. Walking off, I heard a slurp symphony of cleats unsticking themselves from the muddy pitch, and Zach raving about the roar of the crowd he imagined. James just flashed a quick smile, the kind you almost miss. 2 victories tuned to 2 frequencies, reminding me that the art of coaching isn't about cranking the same amp to 11. Rather, it's about dialing the right station for every set of ears on the field. Chapter 7. Understanding the individual blueprint. Tailoring your approach. In Chapter 6, we drew clear lines connecting the inner states of confidence, fear, focus, trust, and motivation to tangible performance on the lacrosse field. We established that the inner game drives the outer game. Now, we add a crucial layer of understanding. While these connections are universal, the way they operate and manifest is intensely individual. Each player possesses a unique internal blueprint, a distinct psychological fingerprint shaped by their personality, experiences, motivations, and how they process the world. Think about your team right now. You likely have players who thrive under intense pressure and others who seem to shrink. Some soak up direct, critical feedback, while others need encouragement to maintain confidence. Some are energized by loud vocal leadership, while others respond better to quiet intensity. Trying to coach all of them using the exact same motivational tactics, communication style, and feedback methods is like trying to use the same key to unlock vastly different doors. It simply won't work effectively for everyone. Why one size fits all fails in coaching the inner game. A uniform approach to the mental and emotional side of coaching often leads to missed connections. You might fail to reach or motivate players whose needs differ from your standard approach. Frustration, yours and theirs. You get frustrated when a player doesn't respond as expected. They get frustrated feeling misunderstood or improperly challenged or supported. Untapped. Potential. Players whose unique strengths or sensitivities aren't recognized may never fully flourish. Eroded trust. Consistently misreading or mishandling a player's. Individual needs can damage the trust you worked hard to build. Chapter 3. Consider two players who both make a critical turnover late in a close game. Player A, highly competitive and intrinsically motivated, might respond best to a direct challenge. "We need you sharp here. Shake it off and make the next play." Player B, perhaps less inherently confident and more sensitive to criticism, might shut down completely if addressed that way, responding better to, "Hey, tough break. Take a deep breath. We trust you. Focus on your positioning now." Same situation, different internal blueprints requiring a tailored coaching response. Dimensions of individuality. Understanding the blueprint. To tailor your approach, you need to become a student of individual differences. Here are key dimensions to consider. 1. Personality and temperament. Introversion versus extroversion. Where do they get their energy? Extroverts might thrive in large group huddles and feed off external energy, while introverts might need quieter reflection time, process information internally, and prefer smaller group or one-on-one interactions. This affects social dynamics, communication preferences, and how they handle stimuli. Emotional intensity. Are they generally high-strung and intense, or more laid-back and calm? This influences their response to pressure, criticism, and high-stakes situations. Natural inclinations. Are they inherently optimistic or pessimistic? Detail-oriented or big-picture thinkers? Natural leaders or quiet contributors? 2. Motivational drivers. Connects to Chapter 2. Your why. What truly fuels this player? Is it intrinsic, love of the game, joy of, mastery, personal challenge, being part of a team? Or more extrinsic, seeking praise, avoiding punishment, parental expectations, status, winning at all costs? Most players are a mix, but understanding the dominant drivers helps you frame feedback and challenges effectively. Intrinsic motivation is generally more sustainable. 3. Learning styles. How do they best absorb and process information? Visual learners. Benefit from demonstrations, whiteboard diagrams, and film review. Auditory learners grasp concepts well through clear verbal explanations and discussions. Kinesthetic learners learn best by doing, feeling the movement, and through hands-on adjustments. Tailoring how you teach skills or explain tactics can significantly impact comprehension and confidence. 4. Stress responses and triggers. What specific situations tend to trigger a stress response in this? Individual, e.g., playing against a specific opponent, high-stakes moments, receiving public criticism, certain types of drills. How does their stress typically manifest? E.g., becoming quiet, withdrawn, getting agitated, angry, making uncharacteristic errors, physical symptoms. Knowing their pattern helps you anticipate challenges and offer targeted support. 5. Background and life context. Without being intrusive, acknowledge that players bring their whole selves to the field. Factors like family dynamics, academic pressures, social stresses, previous coaching experiences, positive or negative, injuries, and cultural background all contribute to their current inner state, resilience levels, and how they perceive the world. You don't need to know all the details, but recognizing that external factors do impact internal states fosters empathy. Getting to know the individual. Practical and ethical strategies. Understanding these blueprints requires intentional effort, observation, and conversation, always conducted ethically and within your role as a coach. 1. Individual check-ins. Make time for brief, informal, one-on-one conversations. Go beyond lacrosse talk occasionally. Ask open-ended questions, Chapter 5, like, how are things going for you overall? What's been the most challenging part of practice lately? What helps you feel most confident, prepared? How do you learn best? 2. Refine your observation. Chapter 4. Revisited. Pay attention to individual patterns. Notice deviations from their typical body language, energy, and interactions. What seems to energize player X? What situations seem to consistently challenge player Y? 3. Listen. More, talk less. Especially in one-on-one settings, focus on truly hearing their perspective. Chapter 5. Let them guide the conversation sometimes. Consider optional player questionnaires. Early in the season, you might use simple questionnaires, optional and confidential, asking about goals, what they enjoy about lacrosse, what kind of feedback helps them most, or how they prefer to learn new concepts. Frame it as helping you coach them better. Ensure sensitivity and privacy. 5. Invite feedback on your coaching. Create channels, perhaps anonymous suggestion boxes or specific check-in questions, where players feel safe giving feedback on what coaching approaches work well or not so well for them. This requires humility but yields invaluable information. 6. Maintain appropriate boundaries. Crucially, remember you are a coach, not a therapist. Your goal is to understand players as athletes within your team context to help them perform better and have a positive experience. Avoid deep psychological probing. If you identify significant mental health concerns, severe anxiety, depression, disordered eating, etc., your responsibility is to refer the player to appropriate professionals like school counselors, sports psychologists, or medical personnel following your institution's protocols. Know your limits and resources. Tailoring your approach. Putting understanding into action. Understanding individual blueprints allows you to customize your coaching, feedback delivery. Offer direct, data-driven feedback to the player who thrives on objective challenge. Provide sandwich feedback, positive, corrective, positive, or focus on effort for the player needing confidence boosts. Correct some players publicly, if appropriate and they respond well, others privately. Motivational tactics. Use statistical goals for an extrinsically motivated player. Focus on skill mastery and personal bests for an intrinsically motivated one. Frame team challenges to appeal to different personalities. Instructional methods. Use whiteboard diagrams before practice for visual learners. Provide clear verbal summaries for auditory learners. Incorporate drills with lots of repetition and feel for kinesthetic learners. Offer multiple ways to understand a concept. Managing pressure. Teach different pre-game routines or mid-game. Reset techniques based on individual stress responses. Offer different types of encouragement during tense moments. Conclusion. Unlocking deeper potential. Treating your players as unique individuals doesn't mean creating 25 different practice plans. It means recognizing that the way you communicate, motivate, challenge, and support needs to be flexible and attuned to the distinct inner landscape of each person wearing your team's jersey. This tailored approach, grounded in observation, listening, and genuine care, fosters deeper relationships, builds more resilient athletes, and ultimately unlocks a level of potential that a one-size-fits-all methodology simply cannot reach. By understanding the individual blueprint, you are now better equipped to teach players the skills they need to navigate their own inner worlds effectively. In the next chapter, we will explore practical strategies for cultivating two cornerstones of high performance and well-being: resilience and mental toughness. The first cold snap of April turned every ground ball into a rock, and by the third quarter, our midi Luke had already coughed up two in the defensive end. Each turnover drew louder groans from the bleachers, and I watched him shrink an inch after every one, shoulders hunching like he was trying to fold into his chest pad. Between quarters, I pulled him aside, handed him a strip of athletic tape, and told him to wrap it once around the throat of his stick. "That's your checkpoint," I said. "Every time you touch the tape, say your next move out loud, just for you to hear." He looked at me like I'd given him a sack of magic beans or something, but he nodded and wound the white ring tight. Back on the field, Luke's glove brushed the tape before the face-off. "Secure outlet," he muttered. The whistle squealed, the ball squirted loose, and this time he boxed out the scrum, scooped clean, and zipped the pass to our safety valve. A minute later, he got the ball back, and reading his lips, I heard him whisper, "Protect, push," and he split his man for a clean clear. You could almost see confidence rising through him, like mercury in a thermometer. By the fourth quarter, teammates were teasing him. "What's the word, Luke?" And he'd grin, thumb the tape, and answer with another smart play. The bleacher groans had turned into a drumbeat of sticks on the fence line, punctuating each successful possession. After we sealed the game, Luke jogged over and tapped the now frayed tape. "I guess I just needed a HUD," he said, as if surprised by his own calm. I told him the strip would probably wear off by next practice, but the switch had flipped, that quick verbal cue anchoring him to the next task, was his to keep, no tape required. Chapter 8. Forging Inner Strength. Cultivating Resilience and Mental Toughness. Having explored the unique internal blueprint of each player in Chapter 7, we now possess a deeper understanding of their individual personalities, motivations, and stress responses. This insight is invaluable because it equips us to move beyond merely understanding the inner game and start actively helping our athletes cultivate the inner strength needed to thrive amidst the pressures and challenges inherent in lacrosse. Two pillars of this inner strength are resilience and mental toughness. For too long, coaching culture has often treated these qualities as inherent traits. You either have them or you don't. We tell players to be tougher or shake it off, without necessarily teaching them how. But resilience and mental toughness are not mystical attributes bestowed upon a chosen few. They are skills. And like any skill in lacrosse, shooting, dodging, defensive footwork, they can be taught, practiced, and developed through intentional coaching and dedicated effort. Defining the terms, what are we building? Let's clarify what we mean in practical, actionable lacrosse terms. Resilience. This is the ability to bounce back quickly and effectively from adversity. It's about recovery. Think of the player who gets beat for a goal but immediately resets, communicates with their defense, and is ready for the next play, rather than dwelling on the mistake. It's about absorbing a setback without letting it derail subsequent performance. Mental toughness. This is the ability to persist and perform consistently towards a goal, despite challenges, discomfort, obstacles, or pressure. It's about perseverance. Think of the player pushing through the last sprints of a grueling conditioning session, the team maintaining effort and focus during a long, physical game, or the defender holding their ground against a relentless dodger. While related, resilient players often display mental toughness, and tough players usually bounce back well. They represent slightly different facets of inner strength. Resilience is the shock absorber. Mental toughness is the engine that keeps driving forward. Foundational principles for building inner strength. Before diving into specific techniques, establishing the right mindset and environment is key. First, shift focus from outcome to process. Constantly emphasizing only wins, stats, or championship trophies can inadvertently increase fear of failure. While winning matters, help players focus on the controllable processes that lead to success. Effort level in practice, execution of specific techniques, e.g., proper ground ball form, defensive footwork, clear communication, adherence to team strategy. When players focus on controlling what they can control, they feel more empowered and less anxious about uncontrollable outcomes. 2. Reframe mistakes and failure. Create a culture where mistakes are viewed not as catastrophes, but as data. Valuable information providing opportunities to learn, adjust, and improve. Model this yourself by how you respond to team errors or even your own coaching missteps. Help players challenge catastrophic thinking. I missed that shot, I'm terrible. And adopt a growth mindset. Okay, my hands were too high on that shot. I know how to adjust that. 3. Build confidence through mastery. Experiences. Confidence isn't built through pep talks alone. It's forged through competence. Design drills and practice scenarios where players can experience incremental success and build mastery over specific skills. Provide specific positive feedback focused on effort, improvement, and correct execution. Great job keeping your feet moving on that defensive stand is more effective than just good D. This creates a positive feedback loop. Success builds confidence, which fuels further effort and success. Practical tools and techniques. The Mental Skills Toolkit. Here are concrete mental skills you can introduce and help your players practice. 1. Productive self-talk. Our internal dialogue profoundly impacts emotions and actions. Teach players the catch-check-change method. Catch. Become aware of negative or unhelpful self-talk. E.g., I can't beat this defender. I always mess up under pressure. This drill is impossible. Check. Evaluate its validity. Is it actually true? Is it helpful? Change. Replace it with realistic, positive, and instructional self-talk. E.g., okay, he's quick, focus on my footwork. I've handled pressure before, stay calm and execute. This is tough, but focus on one rep at a time. Coach's role. Normalize talking about self-talk. Provide examples. Encourage players during practice. What's your self-talk right now? Make it helpful. 2. Visualization, mental rehearsal. The mind often struggles to differentiate between vividly imagined and real experiences. Teach players to mentally rehearse successful actions. Technique. Find a quiet moment. Imagine performing a skill flawlessly, e.g., scoring on a free position shot, making a perfect slide, clearing the ball calmly under pressure. Engage multiple senses. See the field, hear the sounds, feel the stick, feel the confidence. Application. Use before games, during breaks, or even when injured. To stay mentally sharp. Coach's role. Guide simple visualization exercises. Encourage players to develop their own positive mental highlight reels. 3. Performance routines. Consistent routines provide structure, focus, and a sense of control in high-pressure or chaotic situations. Types. Pre-game routines, pre-shot routines, pre-face-off routines, reset routines after a mistake or goal against. Elements can include physical actions, specific warm-up, stick, twirl, key focal points, watch the goalie's hips, deep breaths, and cue words, shot phrases, smooth and low, next play. Coach's role. Explain the why behind routines. Help players develop simple, personalized routines they can rely on under pressure. Integrate routine practice into drills. 4. Mindfulness and breathing techniques. Simple techniques can physically calm the nervous system, manage anxiety or frustration, and refocus attention. Techniques. Box breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for fear to repeat. 3 breath reset. Take 3 slow, deep breaths, focusing only on the sensation of breathing. Use on the sideline during timeouts or after a whistle. Coach's role. Teach these simple techniques. Use them yourself too. Model composure. Remind players to use them during stressful moments in practice or games. Coaching strategies and drills for forging strength. Simulate pressure. Constructively. Don't just talk about pressure. Create opportunities to practice managing it. Design drills with consequences. Not harsh punishments, but realistic outcomes. E.g., Turnover means the other team gets possession. Missed shots mean a quick sprint. Time constraints, adding a shot clock or time limit for clears. Noise distractions, simulating crowd noise or adding verbal. Distractions, within reason. Challenging scenarios, starting drills from behind, requiring. Consecutive successful reps, putting specific constraints on players. Focus, frame these drills explicitly as opportunities to practice. Mental skills, focus, routines, self-talk, resilience under duress. Debrief with a mental skills lens. After challenging drills, scrimmages, or games, explicitly discuss the mental aspects. How did we handle the pressure in that man-down situation? What mental strategies did you use when you felt fatigued? Let's talk about our self-talk after that run of goals they had. Make mental skills part of the regular performance conversation. Reinforce effort, process, and resilience. Be intentional about praising. Not just successful outcomes, but also maximum effort, adherence to technique, process, improvement, and especially demonstrations of resilience, bouncing back from errors, supporting teammates. What gets reinforced gets repeated. Individualizing the approach, connecting to Chapter 7. Remember the blueprints from Chapter 7. Some players might gravitate naturally towards visualization. Others might find breathing techniques more immediately helpful. An introverted player might prefer quiet reflection on self-talk, while an extroverted player might benefit from discussing it with you or teammates. Tailor how you introduce these tools and which ones you emphasize based on your understanding of individual needs and personalities. Conclusion: building skills for lacrosse and life. Resilience and mental toughness are not fixed commodities. They are skills forged in the fires of challenge, practice, and intentional coaching. By moving beyond cliches, focusing on process, reframing setbacks, building confidence through mastery, and equipping players with practical mental tools like productive self-talk, visualization, routines, and breathing techniques, you empower them to navigate the pressures of lacrosse more effectively. You are not just building better lacrosse players. You are helping them develop inner strengths that will serve them long after they hang up their cleats. Now that we've explored building individual inner strength, let's turn our attention in Chapter 9 to how these strengthened individuals come together, or sometimes clash, within the complex ecosystem of team dynamics. The first hint of trouble was the silence. During line drills, the boys usually chirped non-stop, but this afternoon the only sound was cleats thudding hard, dry turf. No jokes, no jabs, just 18 separate worlds, discordantly passing back and forth in parallel lines. It felt like someone had turned the team's volume knob to 0, and every missed catch added to the distance growing between them. Instead of launching into drills, I dumped a coil of bright climbing rope at midfield and told them we weren't touching another lacrosse ball until the whole roster knotted that rope into one continuous circle. No scissors, no knives, just hands and ideas. Grumbles surfaced. "Coach, seriously?" But soon defenders were swapping loops with middies, attackmen tightening double fisherman knots under the goalie's guidance. Arguments flashed, then faded into problem-solving murmurs. Scattered lines slowly tugged themselves into one shared loop. When the rope finally cinched closed, I asked them to step inside the circle together. They shuffled in, shoulders brushing, faces close for the first time all day. "Look around," I said. "This is the only space that matters on game day. Tight, connected, no gaps." Heads nodded, a few sheepish smiles emerged, and someone cracked the first joke of the afternoon. The volume knob clicked up a notch. We ran a man, down drill next, the rope now stretched around the crease like an invisible boundary. Communication sharpened, slides snapped on time, and every successful stop sparked a chorus of stick taps against the turf. The drill's intensity rose, but the noise was different. One voice carried by many, instead of many voices, talking over each other. As twilight settled, I looped the frayed rope onto my stick and watched the boys jog off in clumps that overlapped, bumped and laughed. A single practice hadn't fixed everything, but the circle they tied together had tugged 18 strands into one thicker line. Strong enough, I hoped, to hold when the season's real knots started to pull. Chapter 9. The Team Soul. Weaving individual threads into a cohesive unit. In the last chapter, we focused on forging inner strength within individual players, building the resilience and mental toughness essential for navigating the demands of lacrosse. We equipped them with tools to manage their internal state. But lacrosse is fundamentally a team sport. Individual strength, while crucial, realizes its full potential only when woven into a cohesive, functioning unit. A team is more than just a collection of skilled individuals. It develops its own personality, its own energy, its own collective consciousness, what we might call the team soul. Think of your team as an intricate ecosystem or a complex orchestra. Each player is a vital part, bringing their unique strengths, weaknesses, and inner state, their individual blueprint, Chapter 7. These individual elements constantly interact, influencing the overall health and harmony of the system. A surge of confidence in one player can lift the group. Simmering resentment or unchecked anxiety can poison the atmosphere. Likewise, the collective energy and dynamics of the team profoundly impact each individual's ability to perform and feel supported. As coaches, tending to this team soul is as vital as managing individual players or drawing up plays. Reading the collective room, sensing team energy and mood. Just as you learned to observe individual cues, Chapter 4, you must also develop a feel for the team's collective state. Apply those same observational skills, but broaden your lens. Collective body language. How does the team look as a group during warm-ups, drills, or on the sideline? Are they engaged, upright, and connected, or are they scattered, slumped, and disconnected? Communication volume and tone. Is there a buzz of focused, positive communication during drills? Or is it silent, punctuated by critical remarks or excessively loud and frantic? Pace and focus. Does practice flow with purpose and intensity? Or does it feel sluggish, requiring constant prodding? How quickly does the team refocus after a break or transition between drills? Response to momentum shifts. Observe the collective reaction to a goal. For or against a great play or a critical mistake. Does the team's energy lift together? Does it plummet after a single setback? Do they rally around each other? Learning to sense these shifts, the team becoming flat midway through practice, May 1st, perhaps end of semester fatigue is setting in, getting tight and quiet before a big game, or building infectious positive momentum, allows you to intervene thoughtfully. You might need to inject energy with a change of pace, calm nerves with focused breathing, or simply acknowledge and validate the team's feeling before refocusing them. Building a shared identity and purpose, the who are we? A team united by more than just wearing the same jersey is exponentially stronger. Help your team define who they are and what they stand for, beyond just aiming for wins. Define core values. What principles guide your team's behavior? For example, relentless effort, positive communication, accountability, resilience, selflessness. Ideally, define these collaboratively early in the season or revisit them now so players feel ownership. Post them visibly, refer to them often, and recognize players who embody them. Establish shared goals, process and outcome. Include clear outcome. Goals: win the conference, make playoffs. But heavily emphasize process goals tied to your values, e.g., lead the league in ground ball hustle plays, improve our clearing percentage by X% through better communication, maintain positive body language after mistakes. Reinforce identity. Consistently use language that reflects the desired. Identity. We're a team that battles for 60 minutes. That's how a team name defense communicates. Celebrate examples of the team living its values. A strong shared identity provides direction, unites players under common standards, and fuels collective motivation, especially when facing adversity, facilitating communication and connection within the team. Effective teams talk openly, honestly, and constructively. Your role is often to facilitate this. Structure communication opportunities. Use team meetings not just for tactics, but for guided discussions. Ask open-ended questions about team dynamics, recent challenges, or upholding values. Use small group breakouts to ensure more voices are heard. Encourage peer feedback constructively. Teach players how to give. Feedback to teammates respectfully and effectively. Focus on behaviour, be specific, offer solutions. Create drills or situations where peer coaching is expected. Foster peer support. Cultivate a culture where teammates genuinely encourage each other, pick each other up after mistakes, and hold each other accountable to team standards in a positive way. This requires trust, Chapter 3, and modelling from coaches and leaders. Navigating conflict and difficult dynamics. Conflict and challenging interpersonal dynamics are inevitable. Ignoring them allows them to fester. Addressing them constructively strengthens the team fabric. Address conflict. Promptly and fairly, don't let issues simmer. Use your listening skills, Chapter 5, to understand all perspectives. Mediate discussions focused on behaviour and impact, not blame. Help players find common ground or agree on respectful ways to move forward. Counter negative dynamics. Proactively. Cliques. Promote whole team activities, mix up drill groups. Frequently, emphasise shared team goals over subgroup loyalties. Jealousy. Playing time roles. Ensure transparency and fairness in. Decision-making, Chapter 3. Clearly define roles and expectations. Emphasise the value of every role to team success. Gossip, negativity. Set a clear standard for respectful. Communication. Address gossip directly but discreetly. Encourage players to speak to teammates, not about them. Model positivity yourself. Blame culture. Consistently reinforce shared accountability. Use we language when discussing setbacks. Focus on solutions, not fault-finding. Strengthening the weave. Purposeful team building. Team building should go beyond just pizza parties, though those have their place. Design activities with a clear purpose related to improving trust, communication, problem-solving, or reinforcing team values. Collaborative challenges. Tasks requiring the whole group to work together to succeed, e.g., problem-solving initiatives, building something together, navigating a challenge course, ensuring physical, emotional safety. Shared experiences beyond lacrosse. Community service projects supporting another team at your school, learning about team history or traditions. Structured discussions, guided conversations about leadership, handling, adversity, defining success, or appreciating teammates' contributions. Debrief these activities. What did we learn about communication? How did we handle frustration? How can we apply this to the lacrosse field? The coach's role as weaver-in-chief. Ultimately, the coach is the primary architect and guardian of the team's soul. This requires constant attention, paying attention to the team's climate daily. Modelling, embodying the values and communication style you expect. Reinforcing, consistently acknowledging and rewarding behaviours that align with the team identity. Addressing, tackling issues and conflicts promptly and constructively. Protecting, shielding the team from unnecessary external negativity. Where possible. Conclusion, the strength of the pack. Tending to the team soul, fostering positive energy, building a shared identity, facilitating open communication, navigating conflict constructively, and strengthening connections, creates a powerful synergy. It transforms a group of individuals, however strong, Chapter 8, into a cohesive unit capable of achieving more together than they could alone. A team with a healthy soul doesn't just perform better. It provides a more supportive and rewarding experience for everyone involved. This collective strength and connection become especially vital when the team inevitably faces significant challenges, setbacks, and failures. The focus of our next chapter. We were getting thumped, 8-2 halfway through the third, and every mistake seemed to land on the same kid. Nate, our backup ex who'd been thrust into midfield because Ben woke up that morning with a fever. One turnover became 3, and soon the bench buzzed with little sighs and eyes. I felt the game slipping, but worse, I felt the boys attaching blame to a single jersey. During the next dead ball, I burned our final timeout and walked them well past the restraining line, out of earshot of parents and whistles. No speeches, no clipboards, just silence long enough for the rain to patter on their helmets. Then I asked one question. When this horn sounds again, what do you owe the guy standing next to you? The answers came out low at first. A clear call, a clean pick, back, side help. I nodded at each one until the circle grew louder, elbows bumped, and someone finally clapped Nate on the shoulder like they'd just noticed he was still there. The ref hollered the 30-second warning, and I told them, pick one promise. Say it loud enough that someone can hear you. Then go keep it. They jogged back different, still wet, still down 6, but moving with the purpose that comes from being accountable to someone other than yourself. Nate's first touch after the restart wasn't pretty, and he lost the ball, yet Will bailed him out with a body. Check that, rattled tin on the far sideline. A minute later, Nate found Will on a give, and go that trimmed the gap, and the sideline erupted like we'd tied it. We didn't complete the comeback. The final read 10-7. But the bus ride home sounded like a win because every kid could point to the promise he kept. That night, I wrote only one note on the practice plan. Storms shrink when you stand shoulder to shoulder. And next time the clouds roll in, which undoubtedly there will be a next time, we won't need a timeout to remember it. Chapter 10. Navigating Storms. Coaching through adversity, failure, and injury. We've spent time building individual inner strength, Chapter 8, and weaving those threads into a cohesive team soul, Chapter 9. We've fostered trust, sharpened observation, improved communication, and cultivated resilience. But the true measure of that strength, both individual and collective, often comes not during calm seas, but amidst the inevitable storms of adversity that sweep through every lacrosse season. Tough losses, frustrating slumps, critical mistakes, and debilitating injuries will happen. This chapter is about how to navigate these storms constructively, not just surviving them, but potentially emerging stronger, more connected, and more resilient than before. The first step is accepting the inevitability. In competitive sports, setbacks are part of the landscape. Denying this or reacting with panic only compounds the difficulty. The crucial variable isn't whether adversity strikes, but how the team, led by the coach, chooses to respond. A destructive response involves blame, fracturing, dwelling on negativity, and loss of belief. A constructive response involves acknowledgement, analysis, learning, mutual support, and renewed focus. Your role as coach is pivotal in steering the team towards the latter. Coaching through losses and slumps. Losing hurts. A string of losses can shake a team's confidence to its core. How you manage these periods is critical. Immediate post-loss. The minutes after a tough loss are emotionally charged. This is not the time for deep tactical analysis or assigning blame. Regulate yourself. First, players will mirror your emotional state. Manage your own disappointment. Project composure and perspective. Chapter 2. Revisited. Acknowledge effort and emotion. If the effort was there, recognize it. Validate the team's disappointment. This loss stings, and it's okay to feel that. Reinforce unity. Emphasize sticking together. We win together. We lose together. We'll figure this out together. Keep it brief. Save detailed analysis for later when emotions are less raw. The debrief. Next practice, film session. Now, shift to learning. Maintain safety. Ensure the environment feels safe. Chapter 3. 4. Honest reflection without fear of harsh judgment. Objective analysis. Focus on what happened and why. Process, execution, decisions. Use film constructively. Ask open-ended questions. Chapter 5. To foster player analysis. What patterns did we see? Where did our execution break down consistently? Balance accountability and support. Hold the team accountable to standards of effort and execution, but do so supportively. Focus on solutions, not just problems. Extract key lessons. Identify 1 to 3 specific, actionable takeaways too. Focus on moving forward. Avoid overwhelming the team with negativity. Managing slumps, team or individual. When poor results persist, resist panic. Your belief is contagious. Project confidence in the team's ability to turn things around. Reinforce process focus. Chapter 8. Shift attention away from the losing streak and back to controlling the controllables. Effort in practice, fundamental execution, communication. Simplify and focus on fundamentals. Sometimes teams get away from basics during slumps. Revisit core skills and simple tactical principles. Build confidence with small successes. Design practice drills where the team or individual can achieve success and rebuild belief incrementally. Celebrate small improvements. Handling mistakes. Errors as information. Mistakes are unavoidable, especially in a fast-paced game like lacrosse. How they're handled shapes learning and confidence. Individual errors. Address them constructively, often privately to avoid. Public shaming, depending on the player-sought context, Chapter 7. Help the player reframe it as a learning opportunity, Chapter 8. Encourage the use of reset routines, next play mentality. Foster a culture where teammates offer support, not criticism, Chapter 9. Team-wide breakdowns, e.g., failed clears, defensive collapses. Address these collectively, focusing on systemic issues, communication breakdowns, tactical misunderstandings, lack of collective focus, rather than scapegoating individuals. Use it as an opportunity to refine systems, improve communication protocols, or address team-wide mental lapses. Reinforce shared responsibility for both successes and failures. Supporting the injured player. More than just physical. Injuries are a particularly challenging form of adversity, impacting both the team and the individual on multiple levels. Acknowledge the full impact. Recognize that a significant injury involves not just physical pain, but often emotional distress, a sense of loss, identity as a player, connection to the team, frustration and uncertainty about the future. Validate these feelings. Don't minimize their experience. Maintain connection and inclusion. This is crucial. Avoid letting the injured player drift away. Encourage them to remain involved with the team in ways that are appropriate and comfortable for them. e.g., attending practices, games, being on the sideline, helping with stats, mentoring younger players, participating in team meetings, film sessions. Make them feel valued beyond their on-field contribution. Support the recovery process. Show interest in their rehab progress. Help them set realistic recovery goals. Connect them with resources, trainers, doctors, counsellors. Maintain belief in their ability to return, if applicable, and contribute in the future. Help them focus on what they can control, their rehab effort and their role as a supportive teammate. Teaching emotional regulation. Under fire. You can't prevent pressure, but you can equip players to handle it. Proactive skill building. Regularly integrate the mental skills tools from Chapter 8, breathing, routines, self-talk, visualization, into practice before high-stakes situations arise. Normalize their use. Strategic use of timeouts. Use timeouts not just for tactical adjustments, but as opportunities to deliberately reset the team's emotional state. Guide them through quick calming techniques, e.g., collective deep breath, refocus attention on key process cues, and offer brief, confident instructions. Model composure. Your sideline demeanor during pressure moments is critical. If you appear panicked, frantic, or excessively angry, your team will likely absorb and reflect that energy. Strive to model calm, focused intensity. Building a resilient team culture. The synthesis. Effectively navigating storms isn't about isolated tactics. It's the outcome of a deliberately cultivated resilient team culture. This is where all the previous chapters converge. Trust, Chapter 3, allows for honest conversations after failure. Observation and listening, Chapter 4/5, help you accurately gauge the emotional impact of setbacks. Individual understanding, Chapter 7, enables tailored support for struggling. Players. Mental skills, Chapter 8, provide the tools players need to cope and bounce back. Team cohesion, Chapter 9, ensures players support each other through tough times. Explicitly make resilience part of your team's identity. Talk about facing adversity head-on. Share stories, appropriately, of past team or individual examples of overcoming challenges. Frame difficult moments as tests that, when navigated constructively, will ultimately make the team stronger. Conclusion. Forged in the storm. Adversity is not optional in sports, but growth through adversity is a choice. By framing setbacks as learning opportunities, responding constructively to losses and mistakes, supporting injured players with empathy and inclusion, and actively teaching emotional regulation skills, you guide your team through the inevitable storms. Navigating these challenges effectively doesn't just salvage a season, it forges deeper individual character, strengthens the team soul, and builds a resilience that benefits players long after the final whistle blows. These experiences also highlight the crucial role of leadership within the team itself, which we will explore in the next chapter. The morning air was cold enough to fog my old man bottle cap glasses when I flipped a silver dollar onto the turf. Heads runs the huddle, tails runs the touch, I said, explaining nothing else. Mason, our chatterbox captain, snatched the coin first, won heads, and launched into his usual hype. Speech that had the seventh, graders pounding gloves by the end of the stretch. After the first drill, I told Mason to pass the coin to whoever had just led best without speaking. The boys looked puzzled until Noah, the quiet long pole who rarely broke a jog, had sprinted 40 yards to back up an errant shot, sparing the goalie a lonely chase. Mason nodded and slapped the coin into Noah's palm. Noah inspected the coin like it might burn, then tucked it into his pocket. In the next clearing rep, he pointed once, tapped his chest twice, and the defense shifted as smoothly as if he'd shouted an essay. Possession saved, and without fanfare, he slid the coin to JT, a middy who spent the next set barking crisp slide calls the whole sideline echoed. The coin kept travelling, between loud leaders who rallied energy and silent ones who stitched the gaps they saw. Each transfer forced the team to notice a new flavour of influence, and by scrimmage time, even the seventh. Graders were glancing around between whistles, hunting the next worthy handoff. Practice ended with the coin resting on Liam, our backup attackman who'd spent the final drill handing sticks back to guys fumbling with frozen fingers. He slipped it into the ball bag and simply said, "I'll find the next voice tomorrow." Walking off the field, I realized the boys had stopped asking who the captains were and started asking how they could lead. Exactly the currency that coin was meant to spend. Chapter 11. Soulful Leadership, Developing Captains and Player Leaders. In the last chapter, we discussed navigating the inevitable storms of adversity. While the coach's steady hand on the helm is crucial during these times, a team's ability to weather challenges and maintain its course is significantly amplified when strong, positive leadership emerges from within the ranks. Developing player leaders, particularly captains and influential team members, who understand and contribute to the team's inner well-being, is not just helpful. It's a force multiplier for everything we've discussed so far. This chapter focuses on cultivating what we might call soulful leadership. Leadership that goes beyond directing plays or enforcing rules to actively nurturing the team's connection, morale, resilience, and adherence to shared values. Traditionally, team captains are often chosen based on seniority, playing skill, or sheer popularity. While these factors aren't irrelevant, soulful leadership demands a broader, deeper set of criteria. It's less about status and more about positive influence and the ability to connect with and uplift the team's soul. Chapter 9. Redefining player leadership, beyond skill and seniority. What does this kind of leadership look like in action? Soulful player leaders often embody qualities like empathy. They demonstrate a genuine ability to understand and consider their teammates' perspectives and feelings. They notice when someone is down or struggling, built through skills from Chapter 4 and 5. Strong communication and listening skills. They can articulate team goals clearly, offer constructive feedback respectfully, encourage teammates effectively, and truly listen to concerns. Chapter 5 Skills. Integrity and accountability. They lead by example consistently, demonstrating the team's core values: effort, positivity, resilience. They hold themselves and others accountable to these standards fairly. Connectors. They naturally build bridges between different groups within the team, foster inclusivity, and make teammates feel valued and part of the whole. Poise under pressure. They possess, or are developing, the ability to remain relatively calm and focused during stressful moments, helping to steady the team when adversity strikes. Linked to skills in Chapter 8 and 10. Guardians of the team's soul. They actively promote positive team energy, reinforce shared identity and purpose, and contribute to a supportive, trusting environment. Chapter 9. Identifying potential soulful leaders. Developing these leaders starts with identifying potential. Look beyond the obvious candidates and observe. Who do teammates naturally gravitate towards for support or guidance? Who consistently offers encouragement or constructive feedback to? Peers? Who steps up vocally or through actions when the team is struggling? Who exemplifies the team's core values even when no one is watching? Who makes an effort to include marginalised teammates? Recognise that leadership isn't monolithic. Some lead vocally, others lead by quiet example, some lead through relentless work ethic, others through emotional intelligence and connection. Value these diverse styles. Developing and mentoring. Player leaders, it takes intentionality. Simply naming captains isn't enough. You must intentionally develop their leadership capabilities. 1. Explicit training. Dedicate time, perhaps pre-season or regular short. Meetings throughout the season. Even now on May 1st, it's never too late to start or refine. Specifically for leadership development. Cover topics like understanding team dynamics, discussing how to read the teams. Energy, Chapter 9, and identify potential issues. Active listening and peer support. Practice basic listening skills. Chapter 5. And discuss appropriate ways to support teammates who are struggling. Constructive communication. Role play giving feedback or addressing minor conflicts respectfully. Upholding values. Discuss their role in championing team standards. And holding peers accountable constructively. Understanding the inner game. Share relevant concepts from this. Book so they understand the why behind focusing on team morale, confidence, and resilience. 2. Mentorship. Engage in regular one-on-one check-ins with your designated leaders. Ask for their perspective on the team's pulse. What are you seeing, hearing within the team right now? Discuss leadership challenges they are facing and offer guidance. Provide feedback on their leadership actions, both positive. Reinforcement and areas for growth. Empower them to take ownership of certain team functions. Leading warm-ups, facilitating parts of team discussions, organising team events. 3. Grant responsibility and trust. Give leaders meaningful roles and trust them to execute. Micromanaging undermines their confidence and development. Allow them space to make decisions, and even occasional mistakes, within defined boundaries. Empowering leaders to influence the inner game. A key aspect of soulful leadership is attending to the team's psychological well-being. Teach them to observe. Help leaders recognize basic signs of stress, low, confidence, or frustration in teammates, building on Chapter 4 concepts. Equip them for simple support. Provide them with appropriate ways to intervene positively, offering a word of encouragement. Hey, shake it off, next play. Listening briefly if a teammate needs to vent, without trying to be a therapist. Reminding teammates of their strengths or shared goals. Leading a quick refocusing effort on the field. Highlight their role in energy management. Emphasize how their body, language, communication tone, and reactions to adversity significantly impact the team's collective energy, especially during games. They are on-field thermostats. Leadership beyond captaincy. Cultivating a leaderful team. While captains have formal roles, aim to cultivate leadership across the entire team. Promote shared ownership. Emphasize that everyone is responsible for. Upholding team values and supporting teammates. Leadership is an action, not just a title. Create opportunities. Offer smaller leadership roles. Drill station leaders, mentorship roles for upperclassmen with rookies, social committee members. Recognize widely. Publicly and privately acknowledge leadership. Behaviors. Positive communication, resilience, supporting a teammate, leading by example, from any member of the team, not just designated captains. This reinforces the idea that everyone can contribute to positive leadership. Conclusion. Amplifying the team soul. Developing soulful player leaders is a powerful investment in your team's culture, resilience, and performance. When players step up to not only lead tactically, but also to nurture the team's inner well-being, they become invaluable extensions of your coaching philosophy. They help maintain focus during chaos, offer peer support during struggles, and champion the values that define your team's soul. This distributed leadership model creates a stronger, more adaptable, and more connected team. It also provides profound developmental experiences for the leaders themselves, shaping skills they will carry far beyond the lacrosse field. This deep investment in player development, both as athletes and as people, forms the heart of the enduring coach-player relationship, which we will explore in our next chapter. The banquet hall was decked out with plastic tablecloths and deflated balloons, but the boys still filed in like they were walking a red carpet. At 13, they're often too cool for ceremony, yet tonight even the toughest kept sneaking glances at the slideshow looping their season's outtakes. I was rehearsing my usual pride and hustle speech when I noticed Connor, our once timid long pole, hovering near the door, tie crooked, knuckles white around a plain envelope. After the awards, I felt a tap on my elbow. Connor handed me the envelope and mumbled, "Open later." Inside was a "thank you" note scrawled in pencil. He'd been panicking about trying out for high school ball. The note said he kept hearing my voice from an early season drill, focus on the next ground ball, not the last turnover, and it helped him calm down enough to register. No polished prose, just raw graphite gratitude. Driving home with leftover cupcakes sliding on the passenger seat, I passed the elementary school where we'd started fall practices months earlier. The field lights were off, but I could still picture Connor's first shaky clears and the way he'd flinch at every shouted command. Now the kid was standing up in front of parents, cracking jokes about poke. Check's gone wrong. The next morning, flipping through practice plans for the new crop of 6th. Graders, I tucked Connor's note into the back of the binder. Quiet ballast to remind me why the drills matter only as much as the voices that linger after them. The scoreboard from our last game would fade. That penciled message already felt indelible. Every season ends, but some words keep playing in a loop. Sometimes mine, sometimes theirs. Bouncing from field to hallway, to wherever a kid needs steady footing. I used to chase the echo of final whistles. Now I chase the quieter sound of a player choosing to keep going long after the gear is stored away. Chapter 12. The Enduring Connection. The coach-player relationship beyond the season. Throughout this book, we've journeyed deep into the inner world of the athlete and the team. We've explored building trust, sharpening observation, listening deeply, understanding individual blueprints, forging resilience, navigating adversity, and developing soulful player leaders. Chapter 11. Underlying all of this is the fundamental relationship between coach and player. When approached with the mindful attention to the inner game that we've discussed, this relationship transcends the typical transactional nature of instruction and performance. It evolves into something more akin to mentorship, with the potential for profound and enduring impact long after the last game is played or the final whistle blows. What is the lasting imprint we leave on our players? As the season winds down, perhaps around this time in late spring, May 1st, 2025, with seniors graduating and underclassmen looking ahead, it's a natural time to reflect. Is our impact measured solely by statistics, wins, or championships? Or is there something deeper, something more human and developmental at the heart of our work? This chapter argues that by coaching the soul, by engaging with the whole person within the athlete, we step into a powerful mentorship role, shaping not just better lacrosse players, but better people, equipped with skills for life. Beyond X's and O's, the coach as mentor. Mentorship in coaching involves guiding, supporting, and challenging players to grow not only in their sport-specific skills, but also in crucial aspects of character and personal development. The principles woven throughout this book naturally foster this dynamic. Building trust. Chapter 3 creates the safety needed for genuine connection. Observing beyond the ball. Chapter 4 shows you see the person, not just the player. Deep listening and powerful questions. Chapter 5 communicate respect and encourage self-reflection. Understanding individual blueprints. Chapter 7 allows for personalized guidance. Cultivating resilience and mental toughness. Chapter 8 equips players with coping mechanisms. Navigating adversity constructively. Chapter 10 teaches valuable life lessons. Developing soulful leaders. Chapter 11 fosters responsibility and empathy. When you engage with a player's confidence struggles, help them reframe mistakes, guide them through team conflicts, or support them during injury, you are doing more than just coaching lacrosse. You are mentoring them through challenges that mirror life itself. The long-term impact of inner game coaching, skills for life. Consider the skills implicitly taught when you focus on the inner game. Self-awareness, understanding triggers, strengths, weaknesses. Chapter 2. Chapter 7. Emotional regulation, managing frustration, anxiety, excitement. Chapter 8. Chapter 10. Resilience, bouncing back from setbacks and failures. Chapter 8. Chapter 10. Effective communication, listening actively, articulating thoughts, resolving conflict. Chapter 5. Chapter 9. Teamwork and collaboration, understanding group dynamics, supporting others, working towards shared goals. Chapter 9. Leadership and responsibility, taking initiative, influencing positively, upholding standards. Chapter 11. Growth mindset, viewing challenges as opportunities to learn and improve. Chapter 8. These aren't just lacrosse skills, they are life skills. The player who learns to manage their self-talk during a shooting slump gains a tool to combat negative thinking in academic or professional pursuits. The team that learns to communicate constructively through conflict develops skills vital for healthy relationships. The leader who learns empathy on the field carries that into future roles. The focus on the inner game inherently equips players for challenges far beyond the athletic arena. Building relationships that endure. While the intensity of the coach-player relationship naturally shifts after graduation or the end of a season, A foundation built on trust and genuine care can lead to lasting connections. Be approachable. Let players know you're available for advice or support, within appropriate limits, even after they move on, perhaps regarding college choices, career paths, or just navigating life transitions. Maintain connection appropriately. Consider things like alumni, games, occasional team newsletters sharing updates, or simply being responsive if former players reach out. Small gestures can maintain the connection. Offer references. Be willing to provide honest and thoughtful references. For jobs or further education, when you can genuinely speak to a former player's character, work ethic, and skills, both tangible and intangible. Be a consistent presence. Sometimes the most powerful thing is simply knowing that a supportive mentor figure from their formative years is still out there, cheering them on from afar. The crucial role of boundaries. Care with clarity. It is absolutely essential to underscore the importance of maintaining clear, professional, and ethical boundaries in these relationships. The power dynamic between coach and athlete necessitates vigilance. Role clarity. You are their coach and mentor, not their parent, best friend, peer, or therapist. Avoid blurring these lines. Professional conduct. Maintain appropriate communication methods and topics. Avoid dual relationships that could compromise objectivity or create conflicts of interest. Confidentiality and referral. Respect player confidentiality within the limits of safety and mandatory reporting laws. Critically, recognize the limits of your expertise. If a player reveals significant mental health struggles or personal crises, your role is to connect them with qualified professionals, counselors, psychologists, etc., following your institution's guidelines, not to try and solve it yourself. Refer back to Chapter 7. Strong relationships require strong boundaries. Genuine care and professional conduct are not mutually exclusive. They are complementary. Defining your coaching legacy. Beyond the wins. As coaches, we invest enormous time and energy. How do we ultimately measure the return on that investment? Win-loss records fade. Championships gather dust. What truly endures is the impact we have on the lives of the young people we guide. Coaching the inner athlete, attending to their well-being, fostering their resilience, developing their character, contributes directly to a legacy defined by positive human impact. Years from now, players may not remember the exact score of every game, but they will remember how you made them feel, the confidence you instilled, the lessons you taught about teamwork and perseverance, and the support you offered during challenging times. They will remember the coach who saw them as a whole person, not just an athlete. This focus on development is the enduring connection. Conclusion: the privilege and responsibility. The coach-player relationship holds immense potential. When approached with the intentionality, empathy, and skill outlined in this book, focusing not just on the performance, but on the person performing, it becomes a powerful vehicle for mentorship and lifelong impact. It's a profound privilege to be entrusted with this role, and a significant responsibility to undertake it with care, wisdom, and a commitment to fostering growth both on and off the field. Now that we've explored the depth and potential legacy of this relationship, our final chapter will focus on the practicalities. How do we weave all these threads together into a sustainable, day-to-day coaching practice? Every Tuesday before school, I arrive early enough to watch the maintenance crew line the middle, school field. Lately, I've taken to sowing a handful of grass seed in the bare creases while they work. Just a quick flick of the wrist, no ceremony. The boys think the fresh green patches that sprout each month are some district miracle. I've never corrected them. One drizzly afternoon, Sean spotted me, brushing soil from my palms, and asked why I bothered when cleats would chew the spot bare again by Saturday. I handed him a seed packet and told him to toss a pinch where the wing had turned to mud. "Won't last," he muttered, but he scattered it anyway. 2 weeks later, during warm-ups, I noticed Sean stoop to pat that same patch before jogging into line. No one else saw him do it, Yet the next time a ball skidded out of bounds, he hustled to fetch it, saving a full reset. And a teammate clapped his shoulder without breaking stride. Tiny things, tucked inside regular habits, quietly holding the session together. On afternoon of our final wrap-up session of the season, I'd brought a fresh practice plan. Colour, coded drills, cue words, mental resets. But by the time I arrived at the field, the boys had already laid out cones, paired themselves for dynamic warm-ups, and chalked our three-team values onto the sideline without a whisper from me. I set my equipment bag down and lingered near the bench for a while, watching 8th, Grader Marcus coach a 7th, Grader through a face, off stance, one hand guiding the clamp, the other tapping the kid's helmet twice, their shared breathing rhythm almost visible in the cool air. 10 yards away, Liam led a ground, ball line, pausing every few reps to ask, "What did you notice?" before anyone scooped again. The answers were softer than any whistle, but sharper than anything I'd scripted. When scrimmage time came, they huddled on their own. No speech, just a circle of gloves touching the grass while each boy named the habit he was carrying into summer. Next, play reset, clear communication, lift the quieter voice. They broke with a clap and played the cleanest 20 minutes of lacrosse I'd seen all year. Fewer dropped passes, sure, but mostly fewer shoulders sagging after the inevitable ones that did drop. At dismissal, Marcus jogged over and pressed something into my palm. My old silver whistle. "We won't need this next year," he said, nodding at the field where younger boys were already erasing the chalk and pocketing the cones. As I turned and grabbed my bag, 3 seed packets fell out, no note attached. My eyes wandered as I tried to put the puzzle pieces together until I caught a glance from Sean across the field. He just nodded at the crease as if to say, "Keep it growing." Driving home under a sunset that glazed the sky like fresh turf paint, I realized I'd never planned a lesson on stewardship or slow fixes. I'd simply done the small, steady work, and the boys had folded it into the rhythm of their own. Turns out, when you sow a habit often enough, it sprouts in places you don't have to tend yourself. Chapter 13. Weaving it all in. Sustaining a soul-centered coaching practice. We've travelled a considerable distance together through these pages. We began by acknowledging our role as keen observers and challenged ourselves to look beyond the X's and O's into the inner world of our athletes, the team soul. We explored the importance of self-awareness, built foundations of trust, learned to observe and listen more deeply, understood the power of individual blueprints, focused on forging inner strength, navigated adversity, developed soulful leaders, and considered the enduring impact of the coach-player relationship. Now, we arrive at the final, perhaps most crucial step: integration. How do we take these concepts, insights, and strategies off the page and weave them into the daily, demanding reality of coaching lacrosse? How do we make coaching the inner athlete not just an interesting idea we read about, but a living, breathing, sustainable part of our practice? This chapter is about moving from theory to consistent action, embedding this approach into the very fabric of how you coach. Think of it like tending a garden rather than building a single structure. It requires ongoing attention, cultivation, and adaptation, not just a one-time effort. It's about integrating these principles so seamlessly that they become second nature, part of the rhythm and routine of your coaching life. Making it routine. Integration into daily coaching. This approach doesn't necessarily require adding hours to your already packed schedule. Often, it's about shifting your focus and intention within existing activities. Practice planning. Intentional design. When designing drills, consciously incorporate elements that challenge focus, communication, or resilience. Chapter 8. Plan brief moments for players to use reset routines or breathing techniques. Individualization. Consider different learning styles. Chapter 7. When explaining drills, use whiteboard diagrams, verbal cues, and physical demos. Reinforcement moments. Plan where you can specifically look for and acknowledge effort, positive self-talk, peer support, or resilience not just skill execution. Film sessions, dual focus. Dedicate a portion of film review not just to tactical analysis, but explicitly to the human elements, Chapter 6. Pause to discuss body language, communication effectiveness, reactions to adversity. Inquiry-based review. Use powerful questions, Chapter 5. During. Film study. What were we thinking, feeling as a defense during this sequence? Look at our sideline energy here. What impact did that have? Team meetings. Beyond tactics, structure meetings to occasionally include check-ins on team morale or energy, Chapter 9. Facilitate brief discussions about team values or recent challenges. Introduce a simple mental skills concept or exercise, Chapter 8. Active listening environment. Model and encourage active listening. During all team discussions, Chapter 5. Game day. Leverage routines. Encourage players to use their individual. Pre-game and performance routines, Chapter 8. Implement team routines for pre-game focus or halftime resets. Mindful timeouts. Use timeouts strategically for emotional. Regulation and refocusing, not just tactical adjustments, Chapter 10. Deliver clear, calm messages. Model composure. Be acutely aware of your own sideline demeanor and its impact on team energy, Chapter 2, Chapter 10. Individual interactions. Habitual check-ins. Make brief, informal check-ins, even 30 to 60 seconds. A regular part of your practice routine, Chapter 7. Ask open-ended questions. Mindful feedback. Apply principles of tailored feedback, Chapter 7. And active listening, Chapter 5, during discussions about performance, playing time, or development. Observe and inquire. Use your observations of individual players. Chapter 4. As starting points for supportive conversations. Consistency over intensity. Small bricks build the wall. Integrating this approach doesn't mean psychoanalyzing every player every day or running lengthy mental skills workshops constantly. It's about consistency in applying the core principles. Small, regular actions. Asking a thoughtful question, acknowledging effort, facilitating a brief team connection moment, modeling resilience yourself. Compound over time. These consistent efforts build trust and shape culture more effectively than sporadic, intensive interventions. Choose one or two areas to focus on initially, build habits, and then gradually incorporate more. Overcoming resistance. Navigating the challenges. Adopting this approach isn't always easy. You might face resistance. Internal resistance. I don't have time for this as soft stuff. Reframe it. These skills directly impact performance, focus, and team cohesion. They are performance skills, not just nice-to-haves. Integrating them often means shifting focus within existing time, not adding more. Doubt discomfort. It can feel unfamiliar or vulnerable. Start small, with techniques you feel most comfortable with. Focus on the positive impact you observe. Habit. It's easy to revert to old patterns under pressure. Self-awareness, Chapter 2, and intentional practice are key. External resistance. Win at all costs. Pressure. Clearly articulate how fostering. Resilience, focus, and team cohesion contributes to winning. Highlight long-term development alongside short-term results. Player skepticism, resistance. Build trust gradually. Chapter 3. Explain the why behind new approaches. Start with players who seem more receptive. Let positive results speak for themselves over time. Redefining and measuring success. A broader lens. As emphasized in Chapter 12, coaching with attention to the inner game often requires broadening your definition of success. While wins remain a goal, track other indicators. Observe improvements in team communication and support. Note how the team handles mistakes and adversity. Chapter 10. Seek informal feedback on team morale and player enjoyment. Track individual player growth in confidence, resilience, or leadership. Chapter 11. Assess the overall health and positivity of the team culture. Chapter 9. Define what success looks like for your program through this holistic lens and celebrate progress in these areas alongside the scoreboard. The ongoing journey. Coach, grow thyself. Perhaps the most crucial element of sustaining this practice is recognizing that it's an ongoing journey, not a destination. Coaching the inner athlete requires you, the coach, to remain a lifelong learner, continuously developing your self-awareness. Chapter 2. Seeking feedback, reflecting on your impact, adapting your approach, and staying curious about your players and the ever-evolving dynamics of your team. Some seasons you'll feel you're nailing it. Other times you'll stumble. Embrace the process, learn from mistakes, and keep striving to connect and develop the whole person within the athlete. Concluding thoughts. The richer game. We began this journey by acknowledging our role as keen observers. Hopefully, you now see the field, the players, and your own role with new eyes. Eyes attuned not just to the flight of the ball, but to the flicker of confidence or doubt, the ebb and flow of team energy, the subtle language of interaction, the quiet strength of resilience being forged. Coaching the inner athlete, coaching the soul, doesn't make the game less competitive. It makes it richer, deeper, and ultimately more rewarding. It unlocks potential that purely technical or tactical coaching might miss. It builds stronger, more resilient teams and fosters the development of young people equipped with skills for life. It is challenging work, demanding vulnerability, empathy, and continuous learning. But the enduring connections you build and the lasting impact you can have make it one of the most profoundly meaningful endeavors one can undertake. Go forth, observe deeply, connect genuinely, and coach the whole game. The journey awaits. Afterword. As you turn this final page, the whistle might feel like it has blown on our time together within these chapters, but the real game, the application of these ideas, is just beginning. We've journeyed through the intricate landscape of the inner athlete, exploring the realms of trust, observation, communication, resilience, leadership, and the enduring power of connection that define coaching the team soul. If you take away only one thing from this book, let it be this. The young people who step onto your lacrosse field are more than just players executing skills. They are complex human beings, carrying unique hopes, fears, beliefs, and potential within them. To coach them effectively, to truly unlock their best performance and foster their growth, requires seeing and engaging with that whole person. It demands we look beyond the X's and O's, beyond the scoreboard, and connect with the heart beating beneath the jersey. Now, let's be clear. Embracing this approach is not an excuse to shy away from competition or the desire to win championships. That fire, that love of the contest, the sheer joy of striving for and achieving a difficult goal, that's intrinsically woven into the fabric of sport, and it's why we pour so much passion into this game. This framework doesn't diminish that drive. It seeks to fuel it more effectively and sustainably. The difference lies in perspective. Winning isn't the sole lens through which we view success or the primary driver that eclipses all else. Instead, we operate under the belief that consistently high performance, and yes, winning, becomes the natural result of diligently focusing on the process, building genuine connection, fostering resilience, communicating effectively, and nurturing the inner strength, the soul, of our athletes and our team. When players feel trusted, understand themselves, handle pressure well, and play for each other, they inherently play better lacrosse. This path isn't always the easiest one. It requires vulnerability from you, the coach, Chapter 2. It demands patience in building trust, Chapter 3, and diligence in observation and listening, Chapters 4 and 5. It asks for adaptability in recognizing individual needs, Chapter 7, and intentionality in building mental strength, Chapter 8, and team cohesion, Chapter 9. It requires fortitude when navigating storms, Chapter 10, and Wisdom in Developing Leaders, Chapter 11. And it calls for a long-term perspective on your impact and legacy, Chapter 12. There will be days you feel you fall short, days where the pressure mounts, time feels scarce, especially deep in the season or heading into playoffs around now, May 1st, 2025. And reverting to old purely tactical habits seems simpler, Chapter 13. Be patient with yourself, just as you strive to be patient with your players. This is not about achieving coaching perfection. It's about embracing a continuous journey of learning, reflection, and striving to connect more deeply and coach more holistically. Celebrate the small victories. The moment a player uses a reset routine after a mistake, the improved communication on defense, the team rallying around an injured teammate, the quiet player stepping up with encouragement. These are the building blocks of both a strong team soul and sustainable success. My deepest hope is that the principles explored here contribute not only to your team's performance, but also to fostering a more positive, supportive, and developmentally focused culture within lacrosse. One where players feel seen, valued, and equipped with skills that serve them far beyond the game. The true measure of our coaching often reveals itself years later in the resilience, character, and well-being of the individuals we had the privilege to guide. And paradoxically, by focusing deeply on this process and the people involved, we often find those tangible results. The victories, the championships, follow more readily and feel more meaningful when achieved. Thank you for taking this journey. The work you do matters immensely. Go forth, coach with courage, coach with awareness, and coach the soul. The rewards, both on and off the scoreboard, are immeasurably deep and enduring. Susus.